Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Derek and Logan.
Hello and welcome to episode 146 of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I'm your host. With me as always is Derek, and in for his I guess now just like emeritus guest spot. You can do this anytime you want to, and we're never saying no. Is the immutable, the perfect in every way, the Mary Poppins.
You already introduced me.
Fuck off. The sweetest human being in front of me right now mailed me from New Zealand Whitaker's chocolates and pineapple chunks and chocolate fills raspberries candies to make my birthday feel even better. I'm like, I get this package. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then I'm like, from New Zealand. Oh, Josh sent me something. Oh shit. I would show them off, but they're gone. So
I'm just happy that they made it.
They made it great. Yeah, it was fantastic. But Josh, how are you, bud?
Good. And I hope you have a happy birthday. It was a bit sad to learn that you won't be making it to Osaka. I was hoping to catch you up with you there. So I thought that I would forward you the Whitakers that I promised to bring you. And I thought that it would be great if it could make it for your birthday, which it did. And so big shout out to the New Zealand Post Service for making that happen. And yeah.
They kick ass, I guess. It's a shame unless I find $5,000 in my couch cushions. At which point in time, I'll make the trip to Osaka happen. But I got like 2 weeks really before the actual deadline happens for having to book everything. But at the very least, you got me subbed out with Charmer now, so you'll get Charmer in Osaka, and that will be that's much better to have Charmer there than myself. So
we'll balance it out. I saw you at Los Angeles, and so I'll see Charmer at Osaka, and then hopefully next time we'll see you both together.
There you go. Well, Charmer was in LA. Didn't you see him?
I mean, I was
No,
there.
where was he?
I don't know.
There is evidence of me being in LA, but yeah.
But so obviously we are mostly a flesh and blood show. So I got to know, Derek, did you actually go to any flesh and blood related events during pre-release weekend?
Yes, I did. They were related.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Were they related because you took your son?
Well, yeah. They were related because I took my son. Yeah. We went to a pre-release on Saturday. I had a blast. I did not perform very well. I think it was largely just because, I don't want to fully blame the pool. There was one game where I definitely made one mistake just getting used to the new heroes, but I had a pretty lackluster pool. I played Florian mostly because the best thing is I had a couple of 3-for-7s, but I had a big stack of lightning cards, but they were basically all yellows and blues. So Aurora was out, and I didn't have, I felt like anyway, I didn't have enough firepower to try to do the arcane route with either of the wizards. So I just kind of defaulted to Florian. So I had fun though. And Stark did attend his very first Flesh and Blood real event. Obviously, I've been teaching him to play for a while now with Blitz, and then I took him to the Gen Con learn to play event, but this was his first real event, and he had a lot of fun as well. And looking forward to more. I tweeted out that nice picture doing the cross branding, if you will, where he's got his LSS hat, but then the Ice Cave Radio shirt, sitting down with his cool fab stuff that he has. So, and we did pick up the Rosetta box of all of the Blitz decks and whatever as well, so that we can play with those at home. He seems to really like wizards because he likes blasting. I suspect he's going to land on either playing. He likes ninja a lot. and he likes Ocilio, and I think he was going to land on probably trying to play Ocilio more. So like we also got him the Azalea Armory deck, and we've been playing with that, but I think he's just going to really like the play style of like, here's my like 0 for 4 with Go Again lightning card. You know, you do that like 2 or 3 times and then you end on a super powered zap, call it good. So yeah.
Doesn't seem bad. So now, Josh, I know that you do a in-house pre-release type of thing at LSS that I've heard tell of. Do you participate in those?
Yeah, so I can make it up there, but unfortunately I wasn't able to make it up there. So I work remotely from the office down here in Christchurch, so I wasn't able to go to the in-house LSS pre-release, but I did make it to my local pre-release yesterday.
Oh.
At a little local game school called Iron Knight Gaming. So me and the rules and policy manager, Klaus, we both went to our pre-release here. And it was good fun. I started off with Verdance or Verdance as
or Verdanche.
Verdanche.
I don't know.
Is it Verdance? It's not.
Is it Verdance or is it Verdance or is it Verdanche?
It's Verdance, and it's
Verdance,
every time I hear somebody say Verdance, I just think of that like Hermione meme, and it's like it's not Verdance, it's Verdance.
Well, at least we have the official now, but
so
yeah.
when I just need to fess up to this. When she was first revealed, thought it was going to be Verdance, and then as I learned from this show, I realized that there's like a very large number of dance-related puns in this set. So the one that they keep making fun of me for not knowing, the Trip the Light Fantastic, but then there's like Twinkle Toes and all of these other things. So then I was like, well, maybe it is Verdance. You're putting dance on everything.
It could well be Verdance, but I'm like 99.9%. Just wait until somebody from the law department be like, actually, Josh, like this isn't your department. Like, step back a moment. Like,
it is Verdanche, Josh. That'd be very funny, actually. But how'd it go?
It went well. So I started with Verdance or Verdance. I won my first game just by like a slim margin, and I was like, man, like, I don't know if I have enough decomposed cards. I feel like I'm like a little bit on the back foot. You know what? I've got 6 minutes before the next round. Let's just put together Ocilio. I had his specialization. I had I don't know, some other majestic as well. And I was like, you know what? I'm here for a good time. I want to try these heroes, want to try playing with each other. I'm not here to just like win. I just want to like have a good time. So my opponent helps me put together Ocilio. We're just like, all right, we need 30 cards. Like, you know, where are all the lightning cards? All right, these go again cards, throw them in there. How many instants can we play? All right, chuck all the instants you can into this deck. All right, now wizard cards. These look pretty good. Chuck those in there. All right, you've got 32 cards. Quick, just take 2 out and then like sleeve them up. And opponent, a player to my right's like helping me sleeve up as well. Time in the round is called. We switch over to the next round. I've just started shuffling. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this deck works, but if it doesn't, I don't know. I'm in for a good time. Ended up winning the next 2 games on Ocilio. Like, just had an absolute blast, and it was just one of those heroes. I loved playing him. Like, I don't know how competitive he's going to be in like CC or anything like that, but it really reminded me of like why I love Azalea as a hero as well. Like, you feel like there's just a little bit more to it than just picking the cards you're going to play and sequencing with like just the cards in your hand, because you've got all these other moving elements of like, oh right, I've got the chance to be able to play on my opponent's turn with these instants. I've got the ability to like cycle through cards by discarding with Ocilio to draw that card. I've got to think about like lightning cards before my before amping with Volzair, or whether or not I've got a sigil in play, and all these like little elements and moving cards about whatnot really reminded me of like Azalea's gameplay, where you're thinking about that sequencing, but you've also got that opportunity to like gain a little bit more by like using Azalea's ability or using Death Dealer. And so I had an absolute blast. Unfortunately, the pre-release was 5 rounds, but I had to call it quits after 3 because of some other commitments, but I had an absolute blast. And I think it's probably one of my favorite limited sets. at the moment. Just the ability to like go into different heroes with the different pools of cards and how all the heroes are playing and how engaging the gameplay is, like it is really high up there for sealed for me right now.
Yeah, we had that conversation coming back from Tampa. Dagan White and I, we were driving back from the airport. We drove 3 hours to a different city to fly to Tampa because flying out of Des Moines is an atrocious thing that people shouldn't try. So you can either do a layover in some god fucking awful airport in Michigan, or you can do the layover in your car and then fly direct. And my car is comfortable, so we did that. But we had that discussion where we both kind of felt like this is the best that specifically sealed has felt in Flesh and Blood to us, because you do feel like you have a lot of flexibility. While there's obviously some big some cards that turn the game quickly, felling the crown of the crown seems to kind of be one of those. You don't necessarily lose all agency in one attack. Like, it doesn't feel like that. And also, your pools aren't just self-explanatory necessarily. I played in one pre-release this weekend. That was yesterday. It was really cool too, because so like we sit down, crack packs. I opened 2 Florian split cards. Okay, well, if I have 6+ decomposed cards, probably just in the money with this. I had 6 or 7. I'm like, perfect. We'll just do this. Play round 1 against another buddy of mine playing Aurora, and I'm just like, that seems kind of underpowered for an Aurora deck. What does everything else look like? Do you mind? You want to talk through this? He's like, yeah, let's do that. And so I was just like, this is a Verdance pool. A Verdance or Verdanche pool, I think. And he's like, yeah, I didn't know about that because it seems sort of, it seems like it'd be hard to play. I'm like, no, I thought that too in Tampa, but I finally had a Verdance pool that I put together, and it wasn't hard to play necessarily. It's harder to build than to play. Once you kind of understand what you're building, the deck is not super difficult. I think that Ocilio is kind of the opposite of that, where it's a harder deck to play, a little bit easier to build. But so I helped him build through the Verdance deck, and he comes up to me after the next round. And he's like, yeah, that's much better. Like, okay, so you just did the whole thing where make them block attacks early, decompose into being able to do things, and then just gain 1,000 life and kill them. He's like, yeah, that's exactly what I did. Like, cool, good plan. But also it was so I've been, obviously I play Briar a lot in Blitz. I also played Briar a lot in CC back in the day, and probably going to an LL. I was like, man, now I got to get a cold foil Briar. Fuck. And eventually a Marvel Rosetta Thorn, which please no. And so I'm like, these are going to cost me an arm and a leg. And it's kind of lamenting it a little bit. Then my buddy Rhodey was opening like across me. He's like, is this the thing you need? And throws it at me. And I'm like, yeah, actually, this is the Marvel Briar that I need. He's like, yeah, here you go. You can have it. I'm like, 1 down, baby. Let's go.
That's incredible. It's part of the community spirit, right?
Yeah,
like, you want shiny things, people have shiny things, and you come to an understanding.
Yeah, the understanding was Gib. And he was like, here, take. Great. But, obviously I because of my weekend, because I went and had a very nice dinner on Friday night. My buddies, so we went with another pair of couples, very nice restaurant here in Des Moines. And they started an arms race of ordering $200 bottles of wine for the table, because let's go apparently. And they were really nice Chardonnays. Like, I was very happy with the Chardonnays. And buddy 1 orders a bottle. We kill the bottle. Buddy 2 decides, yeah, fuck it, rebuy another bottle. And we're thinking about going into bottle 3. And my buddy Joe is just like, yeah, I gotta get up real quick and use the restroom. I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll talk through. He's like, okay, yeah, we'll order another bottle or whatever when he comes back. And so he comes back and whatnot. And my friend Edgar is just like, all right, well, we had to leave a little early, so they like go to the server. They're like, yeah, can we get our check and go out? And she's like, no, it's been taken care of. And he's just like, what? I ordered a $200 bottle of wine. No. And she's just like, no, it's been taken care of. So sorry. And he's just apoplectic. He's like, I don't know what's going on here. I'm like, Joe went and paid the bill, dumbass. You weren't paying attention. They have to pay attention with people like Joe. He's just like, I need his PayPal. I'm like, good luck. Like,
yeah,
God bless.
you gotta be quick. You've just gotta be quick. You gotta be onto it. It's one of those senses you develop when you go out.
Yep. We also have because we have Keith Bartram was notorious for that shit too, where if you turned around, if you weren't paying attention, the bill get paid. You're like, motherfucker.
And you have to be onto it as soon as like you've had your meal, you had your dessert, you're in that sort of conversation that almost lull where you're like talking about how good the dessert is. At that point, you need to be as vigilant as fuck, right?
Right. But Joe played us perfectly because he ordered the second bottle right after the amuse-bouche. And so he was ordered the second bottle and was up prior to first course coming. So like he super preempted us.
Yeah, that's a power play right there. That's like next level.
Yeah, that's a I'm not letting this one go. We're gonna get him. Like, it was a hell of a good meal. I really enjoyed it. So I had it was a great time with great friends, obviously. But then today went and played Top Golf with friends and such like that. But I missed our last local pre-release. But obviously I played a ton in Tampa. So I played 5 sealed decks in Tampa. So we were good with just a 6th. But I know I put this in the notes, and so I kind of just do want to talk about it a little bit. But to you two, because I've definitely, Josh, you've had obviously a ton of time with this set as you work on them, and but maybe not a lot of playing. What were start with Derek on this one actually. What were your first impressions and what stood out to you with Rosetta?
Man, playing the game was interesting because some of the things that I kind of had preconceived notions about going into it were just off. First, I'll say this. If your opponent is good, right? If your opponent knows what they're doing, decomposing in the limited environment is not as easy as I thought it was going to be, especially because they can do a good job of like trying to deny you having the option to fill your discard pile, right? There's obviously ways that you can also play around that, blocking with earth cards or whatever, et cetera, but at least in the limited environment, a lot of times those were pretty suboptimal early. So perhaps it was, again, just because I was on Florian and not Verdance, but being in a position where I have to take some extra damage early just to set up the decompose was also sometimes problematic because I didn't have a way to effectively gain enough health back. Like, obviously there's the one decompose card that when you do it, you can gain health or whatever, but it's not like you're packing all the life gain that, say, the Earth Wizard is. So that, I think, caught me a bit because I felt like I had enough decompose and I felt like I had more than enough earth cards, but it was just, it was a struggle, right? Like a lot of times if I was turning it on, it was like I turned it on and then I win the next turn. I didn't get a lot of turns, at least in the limited environment, where I got to like play with the thing. And similarly, when I was playing against folks, if they turned theirs on, the game usually ended like the next turn. It was very swingy, but it was also, I think, more difficult to pull off than I expected. That being said, the other thing that I was just flat out wrong about, I think, as preconceived notions, I thought that Auxilio was going to be the clunkiest to play in limited, and I think it's the exact opposite. I think he is perhaps my favorite of the bunch, and the less health is not the detriment that I thought it was going to be either. Yeah, he can bring the heat if he wants.
Blasts. Yeah. Josh, your turn, buddy. What were your first impressions playing it? What stood out?
Well, so it's really interesting because obviously I'm not a developer, so I don't play with the game, or I don't play with the set every single day. Those developers, they put in the work. I'll tell you that much. But there is quite a distinct difference between working on the set as from the rules and policy side of things, where you're like looking at the edge case interactions and you're looking at like the core of the set from a technical perspective, and then actually playing it. So I always thought that we would have a lot more hang-ups on certain aspects of instant style play. I was like, oh man, like I wonder if like we're going to get into a situation, like especially with sealed or limited in general, where players who come into this are going to just basically be calling over judges for, okay, I try to play this as an instant. He responds with this as an instant. How do we resolve these, or who gets to choose these? And even with like triggers and whatnot flying everywhere. So I was like, okay, this might be quite a difficult like concept, especially even coming from Mysteria, where there was quite a bit of instant style play there. I was like, okay, this is like another step up from that. But honestly, like playing out the game, it felt really good. Like obviously I got to play sort of the wizard side of things with Verdance and Auxilio, and everything seemed like really natural. Like, yeah, there was some instant style shenanigans where you are trying to like, not like you trying to amp in the right part of priority, and you're trying to sequence correctly, but it wasn't anything that was that really disrupted the gameplay. Like a lot of it just sort of lent itself quite naturally to the idea of being able to like, you're with this like idea of lightning cards, you're basically charging up this rod by playing lightning cards and then lightning zap into your zaps basically, and like it all felt like it came together really, really well. And even playing against the rune blades as well, like building up their rune chants, and it wasn't like building up 8 rune chants and then letting go. There was this constant stream of like build up a couple of rune chants, hit you with arcane and physical, and then build up a couple of rune chants, and then repeat and repeat and repeat. And the rhythm of the game felt really really engaging. And that's why I said like this is such a cool like sealed set for me, because everything seemed to be well in its place of what it's trying to do, and it's thematic and it feels good. In terms of like the decompose, like I think it's so cool that you start underpowered, like your cards and whatnot are just like underrate, your hero ability
their way around.
And then you just like all of a sudden it's just like boom, hit that second decompose switch, and then bam, like we're onto it. Like I'm above you now, I'm above rate, I'm kicking your ass. Like it's so cool. I think that the standout thing for me is the meld cards though. Like as soon as I opening the packs is so exciting. Like the card art is good, if not better than it's ever been. And like as soon as you hit those meld cards, it is so exciting, because it's like what possibilities does this open up? Like this is cool. Like what sort of combos, what sort of things am I looking for? Sorry, excuse my dog squeaking in the background.
Zuko can do no wrong. Zuko's fine. Zuko, you get it. You fucking get it, Zuko.
He's onto it. Anyway, but, with the meld cards, right? Like it's just so cool to see so many like synergies sort of like come out, and it's like, cool, I've got this meld card, how best can I utilize this? Like, dumping in these decompose cards, like changing or tuning your deck to make the most of a situation where if I draw this, then I can really go off the rails, but I just need to tune my deck towards either getting a bit more pitch, getting a few more earth cards, making sure I've got that life gain, those sorts of things, and then diving straight into it.
Yeah, one of the things that I think that struck me when I was playing it was, one, I love that you are just reiterating, put your fucking equipment cards in the graveyard when you use them, as people kept flipping them down instead of putting them in the yard. And it's like, you can decompose your helmet and your boots, friend. They say earth.
Yep. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Like,
And I think people starting to realize now how important the design space is of being able to put your equipment into that graveyard, because it matters a lot. And it has mattered ever since Levia came into the realm with being able to put her equipment into the graveyard. And it's like, okay, if we follow this design pattern, the design pattern is there for a reason. And now we can really start to see that you can capitalize in it on more than just, on one hero. There's a whole range of different like future opportunities and future interactions where, as long as you follow like the rules correctly, you'll benefit from it. Come on.
Yeah, it was just, I sit there and I just block with a helmet and for one, and my opponent was just, the response was, well, I mean, you kind of sacrifice value there. I'm like, sure. 3 for 8 because now I have 2 earth cards for decompose. They're like, oh, you can decompose the equipment. I'm like, yes,
has earth on it.
Yeah, you're decomposing it. You like, you throw away your earth equipment and you're just like, I'm not going to pull them up on it. That's a mediocre play. Decompose.
Right.
What?
Shit. It's like, yeah, it had a reason. Dear God. I'm not going to just chuck my armor for no apparent reason, for fuck's sake. Didn't just start playing. But
yeah, we've already made those mistakes. We're not going to.
Oh, I've done that. I've done that a billion times. Like, don't get me wrong. And I was even playing today against a KO because it's just been playing a little bit, getting ready for Milwaukee, seeing what I want to do. And every time that I get frustrated trying something, I just load up Kasai and then start braining somebody. And it's always just like the cutest thing where they're like, I'm going to attack you for 10. I'm like, okay, block 10 and still have 3 cards. You good? Present 14. Go fuck yourself. I don't care. And they're just like, what? Yeah, this isn't that hard. I get to block for days. This is great. But so I've been doing that a lot. And even in those instances, it's dynamo blocking, always remembering to do it, knowing when you could potentially get blown out and just not doing it then, usually against assassins. And then also just like, okay, when do we commit balance? Like, when do I think that that's going to be relevant? And, like small things like that. Opponent went, I had balance because balance of justice is only there for brutes and prism now, really. And my opponent was just like, okay, E-strike with agility token, draw a card as the mode. Like, okay. Block with balance, block with dynamo, block with balance and a card. And I'm like, I think I know where this is going. And so they're like, wild or bear fangs, draw discard. I'm like, perfect, pop balance. And they're like, oh shit, like, right. Kind of knew where you're going with this. Yeah. So now we're back and block this thing too, and then present 10. So it's those types of little patterns and little things with how the equipments are lined up now, and it's bleeding over. I like how that type of play in that type of consideration and deck building is starting to bleed into limited, because it always felt like that was the area of constructed. That was definitely where that type of mindset belonged, and now it kind of bleeds into limited and is way more relevant. And I absolutely love that part. I think that that's fantastic.
Yeah, and like I think that I think it's great to see people enjoying that aspect of Flesh and Blood as well. Like, obviously, starting with Welcome to Rathe, the limited aspects were quite bare bones in terms of obviously an introductory set, right? Like, introducing these mechanics, introducing like the structure of play and how these sort of things go on. But now that the game is established and people understand how to play the game, limited can sort of start to form its own identity instead of it just being mini constructed with only cards that you can't like pick from the whole pool, right? And like we see that with the introduction of the macro for Rosetta as well, where we can start to differentiate limited as its own style of gameplay, where we can embrace the thematics of a specific set by introducing mechanics that you can base this gameplay around. And honestly, for Rosetta, the macro is sort of almost been this testing ground of like, okay, where can we push this design space? Like, we started with something like Helios Mitre in Uprising, where we wanted everybody to have this equipment available to them to be able to give them this, this ability to prevent this damage, use it like once per game. And then moving on from that, it's okay, well, that takes up our head equipment slot. Can we bring this back into the game, but still, keep it around and make sure that we're freeing up that equipment slot so that we can do things like head equipment. And beyond that, the macro serves as this conduit to be able to do crazy things in limited, and the team is working hard on being able to embrace and explore and bring greater limited experiences now that we have this ability to expand this limited gameplay. And Rosetta is just the beginning of it. You will see it in future. You will see a macro again in future. It's just a matter of time, and hopefully it's enjoyable. Everybody experiences an enjoyable experience through that again when we come back with that macro and show that limited is not just a cut down version of classic constructed. It does have its own identity, and it embraces that theme a lot more vigorously.
Yeah, I think one of the things I really liked that you did with the macro specifically is that it's always implied to have started in play, regardless if the physical thing is there or not. You can't fucking miss it, because eliminating that feels bad, just out and out, just right in front, is an A+ move in my opinion, because it's sitting there tucked under your hero with your tokens and you just forget to put it in play or something. Somebody could shark, and say, nope, not there. And it's like that would feel awful, right? And it's like you're one out against one of their larger arcane turns or something along those lines that costs a game. Just having it spelled out that, nope, it's implied in any game of Rosetta Limited that your Sanctuary of Arya is in play, regardless if it's represented on the field or not. If you notice it is not represented on the field, put one on the field. Like, nope, great, perfect, well done, love it.
Yeah, and we were thinking about this from like the rules and policy perspective as well, where we were thinking about what advantage is there to be gained if you forget to put it out in the field. And really, there shouldn't be any. Like, you're playing a Rosetta Limited format, it should be understood that you both need to have this in play. Like, it's a mandatory part of the tournament rules for this format. So it's like, well, there's no advantage to be gained by forgetting, because the opponent should expect you to have it to begin with. And because we've removed it from presenting equipment where you might have changed an equipment instead of having Helios Mitre, for example, this is something that is mandatory. You can't forget it. There's no reason to forget it. There's nothing that would replace it. So let's just eliminate that entirely and just make sure that everybody is on the same field with that. And that will be a continuing theme with macros in future limited sets as well, where we want to make sure that everybody is engaging in the limited format as best as possible to create that experience. So, yeah.
I'm going to slide one in really quick before we get to the rules reprise, as we like to go over and grill you a little bit. But I got this one a lot personally of what I think will happen, which I don't understand why people value my opinion. But the question I kept getting was, do you think that they're going to continue just doing 30 card, minimum, 30 card flat decks in limited for sets going forward? I told them I don't know. I think it makes sense, especially in a set like this, where if you didn't, there would be a lot of just earth piles because fatigue is real. Do you have any insight? Is that's going to be kind of the go forward?
Well, look, I think that the response to 30 card limited has been super well received. Like, I think that and even with 8-pack sealed, I think that has been very well received as well. Obviously, there are pros and cons to doing 30 cards and 8 packs, but it seems like because we've got such a great reception to that, it's a strong indicator that we will be continuing that forward, although the developers will have final say on whether or not it is suitable for the limited format. Obviously, our focus is on Classic Constructed because that is our premier competitive format. and sealed sort of like falls a little bit behind our draft and LL testing and whatnot. But that being said, though, 30 cards has been a brilliant boon to the limited experience, and I think that it will continue for the foreseeable future. But as I say, like, it will depend on the set and what will be the best experience for specific sets moving forward as well.
Yeah, I do love that the community has sort of embraced the concept they refer to life and deck life now as two separate but equal things. Like you have your life total and you have your deck life, and both matter. You have to know where you're at in both. Derek, you've looked like you wanted to say something like 25 times, and I keep stepping on you, so please talk.
No, I'm actually just waiting till we get to the rules reprise. Josh said something about how he, thought all the instant interactions was potentially going to cause questions. And for the most part, my pre-release went pretty well, but there was one card in particular that caused a lot of questions.
Is it on the list?
It's on the list in our rules reprise section. So I'm just holding.
I think I know what it is already.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you do. I may have texted you a picture of it at one point. So just quick hitter here. CC and Blitz, Derek, start with you. Is there anything any hero that you think will stand out in either format? Just kind of right away, not necessarily on a Zen level. Let's not talk about that.
Verdansk, if you play Call of Duty. I think that there's going to be a lot of people that for sure want to experiment with her. I know that there's already a bunch of content creators who have released info about the quote unquote combo turns for her, the crazy things that you can do with rampant growth, and rightfully so. So I, like, at a minimum, I think I would expect to see some of that. I know it's been a bit since Runeblade has felt kind of relevant, so it wouldn't surprise me if there were some folks trying to make Aurora work as well. And then for the other two, I really do think that there's going to end up being a really good Acilio deck. I think it's going to take some time to figure it out, but the potential play pattern and the potential value that particular hero can get, even more so like when you start looking at Classic Constructed, I think is incredibly high. It's just a question of whether or not it can do so through disruption in my mind. So I'll kind of wait to see where that one lands. And then for Florian, I think Florian will also have decent representation, but I don't think that he'll be super popular until, Charles Dunn figures out how to just tank a game forever with that hero. But I think of the four, the Earth Wizard, I think, has raised the most eyebrows, at least in the short term.
I could see that, mainly from the feet pics. Josh, is there anything that you've seen that you're like, I think that this has legs in this format or that?
Well, look, I'm actually excited for Florian OTK, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing somebody stack up. Actually, I used to play Viserai OTK back in the days. So when Crucible came out, I was collecting foil rune chants from the Crucible set. So I have I think it's 60 or 70 Crucible of War foil rune chants for when I play OTK Viserai, and I think I might just have to use them again for my Florian OTK deck.
Stack them up this tall.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's a little bit more intimidating than just having dice to show off, because when you're literally moving piles of rune chants around and being like, all right, this is a pile of 10, this is a pile of 10, this is another pile of 10. How many do I need again? Okay, I'll just bring out these have a deck box just for your foil rune chants.
Just the rune chants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching some play tonight and saw somebody playing Verdant, or sorry, not Verdance, but Florian, and they were definitely leaning into the, all right, well, I got to germinate and play. Pitch 3 blues, make $1 billion. Next turn, I'd pitch deck my germinates, pitch 3 blues, make $1 billion. And it's Yikes. This is a lot. Please
Yep.
no.
Yep.
And
I'm very much looking forward to it.
So I have seen a decent amount of Florian kind of showing up in people's testing on Talishar and stuff like that. So I think that one is going to be a little bit more popular early. I do know that Aurora feels really, really dumb when it gets going, especially because of the channel in this set combined with things like Arc Lightning, where it just triggers and draws cards. And turns out drawing cards is good.
Yeah, who knew? Apparently drawing cards is so good that we should probably stop people from reading.
Yeah, we've gotten to the point that we don't promote literacy anymore because drawing cards is too good. Well, fuck. And because there was even one turn sequence where there was a channel in play, and it's like, okay, I'm in danger. That's not good. And they presented a second channel. I was like, do these trigger independently? Shit. And I died. But neither here nor there. I tried to AB as much as I could, but no, wasn't enough. I died. But yeah, it's super interesting because, again, I like how this has created more deck building puzzles yet again. And I think that these are heavier deck building puzzles than they were in Part the Mistveil, mainly because Part the Mistveil felt very self-contained. Like you didn't branch out necessarily a ton into other sets. Whereas in this set, you are branching directly out into a bunch of other sets, particularly Tales of Aria. And then even past that with Oscillio, you're in Verdance, you're dipping into Crucible, you're dipping into Arcane Rising. And with the 2 Rune Blades, you're dipping into every fucking set they've printed Rune Blades in, which feels like it's 100 at this point. But it's only like 3. But that's not the point. And
yeah, I think part of that like whole deck building puzzle is part of like the fact that we're revisiting an area that we've seen before, right? Like when you've already got some established Earth cards and established Lightning cards, you've already got these Elemental cards, you've already got like a lot of the space, and it's only going to continue from here because when we eventually inevitably revisit Mistveil again or revisit Volcor again or revisit Solana again, like it's going to be one of those situations where it's like, right, cool, we've got this self-contained set where the limited experience is good, thematic, introduces new mechanics, but then all of a sudden when you reach CC, it's like, oh, all right, well, we're doing a lot more than just like with this pool. This isn't like Part the Mistveil solo. Like this is Classic Constructed. We've got all of these cards now, and that experience is just going to keep getting better and better and better with this much larger card pool of this history of previously almost siloed cards branching out and like attaching themselves to these different heroes and these different identities. And it will come to the point where like if you have held on to this this 3-cent Majestic from Everfest or something like that, like eventually it'll come to the point where it's like, oh my god, like this card is a fucking bomb, like let's go, let's jump this in a deck and let's go.
There's a reason that anytime that people were fire selling Everfest, I was just buying it. Because there are so many cards in that in Everfest where you're just like, people are like, what? Well, yeah, I want this card's really good. What set was that in? I'm like, that was Everfest. And they're just like, yep. Oh shit. Like,
I think people forget that.
But let's move into the Rules Reprise, because I know that Derek is wanting to get into this, because there is you made some nonsense in this set. And I know it's not your fault that there's nonsense. However, we did learn from the last time you're on the show that you do get asked if you can do this. And that means at some point in time, you said yes. So you are at least marginally complicit in some of the bullshit.
I mean, let's be fair.
I said
here.
marginally.
Okay, yeah, sure. I complied. I guess that is true. I didn't say no, you can't, out of the sheer fear that it might be abused one day. But in saying that, like saying whether or not something works is either a technically true statement or a false statement, right? Like there's a binary yes or no. It's more of a yes, this works, but have you considered the consequences of doing so?
I will go ahead and get this out of the way that I do believe that some of the cards in this set are going to teach a lot of people what layers are and how link steps resolve, because you better fucking know or you're gonna get got.
Yep.
So let's start with we got a couple of layups here. First one is Arc Lightning. Easy enough. If you go again, you deal an arcane damage to any target.
Yep.
It's very straightforward, and it has go again stapled to it. So when it resolves, it's going to then see the fact that it goes again and it's going to deal an arcane.
Yep. So pretty straightforward. And then, of course, the caveat of like you play it on your opponent's turn, maybe with something like, I don't know, Spellbound Creepers or another effect that allows you to play an action as an instant. And then it won't deal any arcane damage because you can't go again on your opponent's turn. You're
Correct.
not the turn player, so you don't gain any action points from go again. Therefore, you're not dealing any arcane damage. So pretty straightforward on that one.
Yeah, that one felt easy. I'm like, okay, Arc Lightning's easy. No, honestly, that was one of the coolest experiences in Tampa, is because that was the one specialization that people hadn't seen before cracking packs in Tampa. Everybody was like, what's Aurora specialization going to do? And so somebody a couple of seats down from me opened one and went, oh shit, what the fuck? And we're all just like, what is it? I found Aurora specialization. What is it? Oh no. Oh, that's going to just blow somebody up, isn't it?
It's like, read it aloud for the class, please.
Yeah. And so it was aggressive.
One of the things that was not covered by the reprise, and though I pretty much think I know the answer to this, for listeners who might question it, what happens if you have something that already has go again naturally on it, and then you also give it go again after you have played Arc Lightning? So like, let's just say the sequence is like Arc Lightning, Mauvrian Skies into a Rune Blade attack that naturally has go again. Does that attack, because it has go again twice, deal 2 arcane now, or does it just deal 1 because you can only ever really have one instance of go again?
It only deals 1, so you can't just go ahead and stack a whole bunch of. I mean, it's a good question, and like, you know, these sorts of questions are like, to be fair, it is important for these questions to be asked, because when new players come into the game and they see, oh, we're going to give this go again, and they see Arc Lightning, especially if you're introducing them to like Rosetta as like their first set, they're going to think, oh, you can stack this, and then you can just like blast your opponent to death with like, you know, 15 go agains on one attack. But, like, that's like brainstorm on a stick kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
I think the card is very well templated. Yeah, I think the card is really well templated because it says when you go again. And since you can't go again, you would still only do it once. So I think the templating of the card really kind of fixes the question quite a bit. So hats off on this one. Well done. Proud of you.
Thank you. It's not a team effort, that's for sure.
We're going to go to the next one, which is this glyph overlay. Easy peasy. If you don't have any sigils, you don't shuffle.
Yep.
Because there's nothing to shuffle in.
Yeah.
Unlike other cards where if they have a search involved, even if you fail to find, you would still always shuffle. Or if it says to shuffle in general, you would shuffle.
Yeah. So like, it was just I saw this question come up in the Judge Discord, and I was like, okay, I think this is an important point to sort of like differentiate the different types of shuffling. And if you're asked to shuffle 0 cards into your deck, you still shuffle. And that was the point that I brought up with the plan for the worst card, where it's like, okay, if you've got 0 cards in hand and you're asked to shuffle X number of cards back into your deck, you're still shuffling your deck. But when, you've got, say, shuffle these cards back into their owner's decks, if there are no cards to shuffle, you don't know who their owner's decks are, and therefore there are no decks to shuffle. And so we don't have this weird edge case where, like, you deal 4 damage, you control no sigils, and then you have to shuffle for some reason. Like, that just doesn't make sense. So very easy one, just to clarify, like, this works intuitively how you think it works. You don't need to freak out about it.
No shuffling.
Yeah.
And I think that one's pretty simple too. No notes, no worries there. Okay. I'm going to read what I wrote in the show notes verbatim for this next thing. It says, "Gone in a flash. Josh, what the fuck?" And now I'm going to read for the class Gone in a Flash, because it's worth reading, and understanding how this works is not intuitive. So it is 0 for 4. So 0 cost, red, 4 attack, 3 block if you're into that thing, kind of thing. And because of one of the cards, that's later on in this, might be. When this attacks, the next time you play an instant card, this chain link, you may return this to its owner's hand. Now, Josh, who hurt you? I gotta know who did it, because
it was a team effort. That's what it was.
Okay. So, for people that might not get this, I'm going to do my best and then have you correct what I say.
Yeah, all right.
So
I'm happy with that.
So, with this, specifically with Gone in a Flash, if you were to attack with it and it had go again, somehow, some way, embodiment of lightning, whatever, and you got to damage resolution, you would have a window after damage has been dealt and calculated. So I believe that'd be the damage. Is that the calculation step? Okay.
Yep.
To then play an instant, which this would see, and then this would be able to bounce back into your hand before that chain link closes, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So, in theory, you could play a Gone in a Flash with Go Again, and then play, let's pick one here. Electrostatic Discharge. After
just out of the blue. Just
sure.
Out of the blue.
Out of the blue. After damage resolution has happened, but before the chain link closes, and bounce it back to your hand, and then replay the same one for 7. Same combat chain, same card, but now we're coming in for 7. So that card is attacked for 11.
So how's
Correct.
it getting the +3, sorry?
From Electrostatic Discharge. Not Electromagnetic Somersault. We're not there yet.
We're
not there yet. Electrostatic Discharge is the next action card you play this turn with cost 1 or less as a red gets +3.
Yep.
As a lightning instant. So, okay. Now, we had tables worth of discussions in Tampa over whether or not there is a window in damage calculation to return this to your hand. Now, for what it's worth, the judges were spot on, but there was a lot of conferencing, because it's like, I'm pretty sure, but we've never had to really deal with this before. So it'd been great if we got an FAQ.
You did. Okay, so quick story time. Gone in a Flash, when it came across my desk to go ahead and proof, I was like, I had to confirm with the devs exactly what they wanted to do with this card, because I was like, okay, you want to be able to return this to hand, but you realize that if you play any instance before you go to the damage step, this will just return to hand and the combat chain will close. And like, then you've just like done nothing, because like you've played a 0 cost card and you've wasted an action point. Maybe you've baited out some defending cards. Like maybe that's the goal. And the only other benefit that you would get is if you go after the damage step, because it's important to note you can't play you can't play any instants during the damage step. It goes
Correct.
layer, attack, defend, reactions. Then you calculate damage, and then you go resolution step. That's when you would play your instant to get maximum benefit. And then the link step is when you can continue to attack and do stuff. And so I had to confirm with the devs exactly what they wanted. And like, I think this might have been like one of the most conferenced cards that we talked about in terms of like, okay, making sure we get this interaction exactly right, because the wording on it had to be incredibly specific. We had to make sure it was an on attack trigger. We had to make sure it was the next time. It had to be a optional, like you had to be able to have the option to return it, so you could still just like play a lightning press to give it the +3 or whatever, and do the things. So there was a lot of like going back and forth about making sure that it gave you exactly the opportunities that you wanted to be able to use with it. In terms of the world premiere, we had the idea that like, okay, well, hopefully most of the important like commons and rares and whatnot get revealed. We can release the release notes and whatnot, and everyone will be happy. They'll read the release notes, the judges will know what's up and whatnot. And then I realized we're not revealing Gone in a Flash. So someone is going to open Gone in a Flash at the world premiere, and the judges are going to have to deal with this. And I'm like, okay.
It was me, by the way.
It was you. Okay, all right. Well, surprise. So I was like, okay, what we'll do is we'll inform the head judges under NDA about some of these cards so that we can like talk through these cards and they can help, deal with these sorts of situations and whatnot. And I'll stay up and I will push out the remaining release notes of all the cards once everybody's opened their sealed pool. So I looked at the time and Tampa started at, I don't know, I think it was like 10 a.m. in the morning or something. Yeah. And so that ended up being 2 a.m. in the morning for me. And I was like, okay, I'll just wake up at 2 a.m. and I'll make sure that I sync up with everybody opening their cards to posting the release notes out. And then Tampa got delayed a little bit in terms of the start. It got pushed back, and I ended up, yeah. And then, of course, there was like an hour of people opening their cards and working out things. So I ended up staying up until like 3:30 a.m. in the morning, and then finally pushed out the release notes. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go to sleep now. I hope everybody's got the rules down.
Yeah. That one, there are two cards specifically, and the other one's at the bottom of these release notes, that caused a lot of questions pretty much instantaneously upon like trying to read them. And I was trying to figure out how to make them work because I opened both in my first seal pool and determined that it's 10:30 in the morning on the East Coast. My brain has gone completely smooth. Gib Florian cards. How many decompose do I have? 9. Fuck it. Ship it. And that was my decision. So, so there's a lot to go over with Gone in a Flash, just simply because it has a lot of different pieces here, and some of it is based in like last known information, which we need to go over just in general, period, because that may be something that people haven't really encountered before.
Yeah. So I think it can, once you understand the basics of like last known information and how instants work and like when the combat chain closes, once you piece those all together, Gone in a Flash makes sense. The way it's worded, the way it's structured, and how to play it and how to get the advantage over it. And I think the first part of that is understanding when you should be playing that instant and how the combat chain closes. So there's a rule in Fab, which is that if a chain link hasn't resolved yet, if the attack disappears all of a sudden, the combat chain has to close. Because the reason for that is like you've destroyed the attack or whatever is doing the attacking. There's no attack. There's no momentum. You don't gain an action point. You've just like whiffed, essentially. So the idea is that before the chain link resolves, if the attack disappears for whatever reason, bounces back to hand, gets destroyed, the combat chain has to close. When a chain link resolves happens after damage is dealt, and that is essentially your attack has made contact with the enemy, your attack has resolved, it's done its things. Cool. Doesn't matter if the attack exists now. It can go back to hand, it can go into your deck, the thing can be destroyed, the combat chain won't close. You've got your momentum. So that is one key aspect. Before damage, if your attack disappears, you close the combat chain. After damage, your attack disappears, who cares? The next part of that is the go again. And so the resolution step is an important part of combat. You've got your damage where you're dealing your damage, you're doing that. And then you might have a plethora of on hits to resolve. And part of those on hits might be giving your attack go again, i.e. when this if this hits or when this hits, this gets go again. Then we have a couple of cards like that, but we also have abilities that grant cards abilities like that. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we check go again after we've resolved all of those things, after we've resolved our instance, after we've resolved our on hits. So the idea is that if something disappears, we still need to check whether or not it has go again after the resolution step. And this is where last known information comes in. If your attack had go again, but all of a sudden it's gone and the combat chain doesn't close, the game needs to check, did this have go again before it leaves? And that's what we refer to as last known information. What was the last known information about this card so that we can work out how this card should operate for things that are guaranteed to happen, checking go again. So that is the other part of it. We can, give this go again, we can play an instant, modify it, whatever, and it can go away and we can still basically play the game as is. And then finally, of course, is just instants and understanding that you can play an instant anytime during combat, and it's a matter of making sure that you're picking the right time to play your instant. You can play your instant anytime in any of the steps leading up to damage. You can't play it in the damage step because that's when we need to shut off player agency and work out what the hell, how much damage are we actually dealing here. And then after the damage step is, okay, cool, damage is dealt, now what are we doing from here? And that's where you can play your instant and get the maximum benefit of not closing combat chain, but still getting your gone in a flash.
This is just really illustrative of why TCGs are so fucking cool. Because these little pieces of cardboard just engendered this entire discussion and so many intricacies about how things can work mechanically in a game, and how the kind of the intelligence of the game outside of the player agency needs to be dialed in enough that it can track states beyond what is in front of you. And that's always one of the coolest parts in my mind about this. I also, again, thank you for I'm going to thank you for one part of templating on Gone in a Flash. Just one. Thank you for being the next time you play an instant card this chain link. I think that's important.
Yep.
Just saying.
I 100% agree. If it was this combat chain or this turn or something along those lines, then we would be having a whole host of different judge calls, I think.
Yeah, if you remove when this attacks, or if you remove... there are so many pieces of this card that if you delete 2 words, maybe even a word, this becomes fucked from the jump. It's already just one of those, how do we do this?
Honestly, I think if you remove May, then this becomes this just... you end up in a situation where somebody forgets that it's a May, they play something like Lightning Press or something, and all of a sudden they've just lost their whole turn because, whoops, I had to return Gone to Flash to my hand. Yep.
Sucks to suck. And this is still going to cause a lot of discussion, I believe. Especially the mark of anybody that hasn't read it yet, go read the Rules Reprise. It's well written. The author is very talented, but it actually does a good job of explaining how some things work, and use Mark of Lightning as an example, which was also problematic back in Aria for figuring out what the fuck is going on.
Yep.
Yep.
Just again, real quick, this is something that I think I already know the answer to, but for new players, because it was not covered in the Rules Reprise, okay. The card itself says the next time you play an instant card, but obviously in Lightning, we have a number of things that say you may play a non-attack as an instant. So does the non-attack played as an instant count, or does it have to be a truly like printed on the card instant card?
It's a good question. It has to be. It has to have the type instant on the card, essentially. And so playing something as though it were an instant doesn't change its type. And another important point that you sort of reminded me of to remind everybody is that activating an instant ability is not playing an instant card. There's a difference between activating an ability and playing a card. And this requires you to play an instant card.
I believe that was also Twinkle Toes has that condition as well, and that caused some questions in Tampa. But those were pretty easy to suss out, and were very quick to fix. So good call out. Both are very important points because it'd be very easy to see how that doesn't work. Okay, we're ready to move on to Charmer and I's favorite card. It's time to get 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Now. I found it very funny that you asked a listener question that asked, what kind of mechanics would you love to see? And I said, I'd like to see intellect modification become a thing. Uh-huh.
Well, you predicted it pretty well. I'll give you that. And it's funny because I was listening to your podcast, and when that question came up and you said like intellect modification, and I'm like, what does that remind me of? Oh, that's right. We have something like that in the set. I wonder if it's been revealed. Like, just check up and, he's going to get you surprised.
Yep, and that was the open in Tampa for this one was I heard somebody go, holy shit, this blocks 10? And all of us kind of stopped. And we're just like, what? And then the card, and then I opened it as an extended art the next day. I'm like, what? This is a fucking extended art? And it's now just like one of my prized possessions because this card is just my lifestyle. But I make myself dumber all the time by doing big things. And hence Charmer. But so the interesting part here is transforming heroes, so demi-heroes. So if you play 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and you're playing Levia, and you transform into Levia's demi-hero, you are functionally a new hero, and so you do not have the intellect penalty. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So with like Teklavos and Macropotent, the Levia Blasphemate Levia Redeemed and Blasphemate Levia Consumed. Levia Consumed. I should be pronouncing Levia correctly. That Hermione meme back in my head is like, it's Levia, it's not Levia.
It's whatever you want it to be. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Are you guys talking about Levia?
Levia. Yep.
Levia? Yeah.
Levia Loca?
Levia Loca. But yeah, so like the idea is like you're actually replacing your hero with a demi-hero. Like you're actually full out replacing them. But with something like Shiana's ability where you're copying a hero, your hero remains the same. They're just like assuming a new identity almost. Like, you haven't actually changed who you are, but you are assuming the properties of a different hero. And that means that you still are under the effects of things like 10 foot tall and bulletproof, dishonor, crush confidence, effects that may change how your hero operates. And I think it's important to sort of like bring that up because I know there were a few Levia diehard fans out there being like, I wonder if we can get like maximum value out of 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And the answer is you can. You just got to pitch stack.
Turns out.
And it just turns out. You just got to make it perfect. That's all.
Yeah, doable.
You just win the game with it.
Oh yeah, or you could just win the game with it. Just like screw the transformation, you just win the game. That'd be good.
Yeah, I mean it's still 10.
I did see a
Still
post
10.
on Twitter about it, and it was like somebody was like, "KO Berserker Rot, 10 foot tall and bulletproof, 20 damage, let's go."
There's a lot of people trying to do some fun stuff with the card, mainly because I think it's a fun card. But it's like people are like, we can play Terra Limb from Limb, right? Like, well, yes, to give a brute attack plus 10. That's not bad.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, so there's I've seen a lot of people playing with it. I'm very happy that this card is talked about as a classic constructed card. It was talked about as a blitz card like immediately, because 10 damage and blitz is just half your fucking life total. Like, okay. In limited, it was causing lots of consternation whenever it hit the combat chain. People are just like, shit.
Yep.
Here's my hand. I don't know.
But that's the thing, right? Like, if you present your hand against this, like, you block out that 10 damage or whatever, the opponent's only got 2 cards to come at you next turn, so you've still got a chance to make it back. You just have to get past the initial incline there. Yeah, unless they come at you with a second or a third or a fourth 10 foot tall and bulletproof, in which case you might just be shit out of luck. But
yeah, it's true. I was doing it with Verdance, and so it was always keep a fertile ground in arsenal. And it's like the idea was pitch deck it so that I'm drawing a blue with a harvest season or something along those lines. It's like harvest season, fertile ground, gain 5, deal 1 to you, pass after eating your hand with a 10 ball. And people are just like, yeah, I'm at 24. Let's go. Come on, more.
Yep.
So the card is quite good in limited. The card is quite good. I think will be quite good in classic constructed, but it's just fun. And I love fun. Like, when you saw this in proofing, what was the reaction? I gotta know.
I had to check whether or not they accidentally added a 0 to the defense value is what I had to do. Like, I was like, just like, I see this has got 10 power, and that makes sense. And it's like a 3 for 10. Like, that seems pretty strong. But this defense value, though, like, are we sure about this? Or am I just like, is this an error? And they were like, no, this is fine. And you know what's funny? So the reminder, not the reminder text, the flavor text on this one, I'm pretty sure was decided as soon as the card was created. Like, usually cards go through like a proofing process, and they go through like, they get the concept art and deciding the name, and sometimes the flavor text gets changed and all of that sort of a thing. I'm pretty sure this flavor text was created as soon as this card was created. So I'm I think it was very strongly decided on what this card would be functioning like as soon as it went into development.
Well done. I appreciate that kind of stuff. A couple more quick hitters. This one I think was kind of caught me off guard a little bit, but it makes sense. It's the Savage Sash discount, right? So Savage Sash, for those that don't remember, you probably should. It's a brute chest, block 2 temper, basically very good. Just whatever you think very good would read like, that's what this card reads like. Action, destroy this. Attack action cards with 6 or more power cost you 1 less to play this turn. Go again. So the thing that we're discussing here is, when do power adjustments happen with a card, and would they discount the cost? From what I'm reading here, it would say yes. It would say the game tracks when the power would be. So if you increase a card's power to 6 from or more from the example in the article is 2, then the game knows that this is going to be, when it resolves as an attack on the combat chain, an attack for 7 or what, whatever the number is that's greater than 6 or greater, and so should only cost X, where X is 1 less than its printed value.
Yeah, so like the concept behind this was more functional than not flavorful, but the intent behind it was functional. The idea here is that we constructed the rules under sort of two agreements or two invariants, and that is we want to determine whether or not it is legal to play a card after effects have been applied to it. So, you are playing a card, you say, I want to play this card, and then you have a whole bunch of effects apply to it, and then you want to check whether or not under those effects, under those changes, under those modifications, is this card actually legal to play? So that was the first invariant that we were looking at. The second invariant is like, okay, we want, before you pay any costs, before you start committing resources, pitching cards, doing the effect-based costs, whatever the additional costs, you want to make sure that the card is legal to play. So the order had to be, you need to apply effects, you need to check whether or not it's legal, and then you go ahead and apply the costs. The consequence of doing that, of course, is that when you're taking into account things like Savage Sash, which look at what the properties of a card are, what the modified properties of a card are, before you pay the cost, it actually influences how much you're paying for it. So as a consequence of that, things like KO's ability, obviously Savage Sash is designed to work with KO's ability, but it also works with other plus power effects. So we're talking Blood Rush Bellows, Come to Fight, and anything else that sort of gives the next card or cards or attacks that you are playing or activating or whatever, that additional power. And so while this is sort of like the one interaction that works that way, there are some other sort of like niche edge case scenarios where if the power of an attack or base power is modified in some way, it may actually be illegal to play that card based on something like Starstruck, for example. So there are other consequences, other sort of like interactions that have existed before now, but this has sort of become a bit more mainstream, and players need to be aware of how effects are applying to cards before they actually do these things like check legality and check and actually start calculating and paying those particular costs. And that's all I have to say about that.
And that's all I have to say about that. Derek, do you have anything to say about that?
No, I mean, even if I had more questions, it doesn't matter. That's all he has to say about it. So
he did shut it down. Yeah.
Blaze.
Okay, we have to move on. We gotta go to Blaze. So, Josh, I had to explain to a lot of people how Blaze worked at Blitz at skirmishes. And I'm glad I was right. But at the same time,
See, we're in an interesting situation with releasing cards outside of usual sort of set products, because with the set products we have a standard release cycle that then gets accompanied by release notes and teaching judges how these sorts of things work. But when it comes to these limited release cards, whether or not they're in armory decks or whether or not they're promos, it's a lot harder to convey that information to the general public, because their attention isn't on the, like, where can I find more resources about these cards? Like, it's with the set that's been released, or it's with this article or whatnot. The focus is on what is this card and where can I play it or where can I get it? And so with Blaze, we were in a weird spot where we tried to disseminate some information about like how to like work out what a hero ability did, but obviously it's something that we are looking to improve on. And I'm more than happy to talk about that later, because I'm pretty sure there'll be a question about that coming up. But that being said, like Blaze, I think, introduces an interesting exploration that we've sort of teased with other effects or other hero abilities previously. Like we saw Brutus Summa Rudius, which was an adjudicator hero in one of the judge packs, which said that you can include cards in your deck with Clash. And that specifically referred to this card can generate the Clash effect, essentially. But the problem is that, it refers to the card generating Clash and not oh, you have something that references the word clash in its text box. And I think that's where a lot of people got confused with Blaze, because a lot of things reference arcane damage effects, but only a few of those cards are actually dealing arcane damage.
Right. And the rule of thumb that I think being used is whatever the lowest printed number is on a card dealing arcane damage is effectively the number of counters Blaze needs to play it.
Yeah, that's right. And there are the other couple of things, like if it has X, you just treat X as zero. And it doesn't matter if the damage is conditional. Like a lot of those small things here and there are just sort of tying up those edge cases, but it basically means you're playing Chain Lightning for 3, Scour for 0, Forked Lightning for 2, Emeritus Scolding for 4, 3, and 2. And then, of course, I had to throw in something that differed a little. So I was like, okay, if she could play Comet Storm Shock, then you would either do 5 or 1. That was the key aspect there.
Yeah. Okay. People keep actually, adding more questions in the Discord. So I'm gonna have to add questions into our listener questions as we go. I do love that Charmer called you out on a typo
was not
in your article.
Calling him out. It was a legitimate question. Okay, I am a dumb individual, and I read what was in the article, and it did not make sense to me, and I just figured I was too dumb to understand it.
It's been since corrected.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, the article is fixed.
Don't worry, Shama. I'm a dumb individual sometimes too, and sometimes I forget what our cards do at some points too.
I want you to just take it as flattery, because that means I read the entire thing, and not just it's another Josh thing. No, when you post something, I am deep diving. Okay, because
I appreciate the comments. Together we are strong, right?
Tapes together stronger.
It was a team effort.
Okay, now, Derek, we're here.
Yeah, so the card that I had the most questions come up about, even more so than going in a flash, was Electromagnetic Somersault. Because now you're bouncing stuff potentially on both sides of the table. And what does that mean? And with the timings as well, pre-damage calculation, post-damage calculation. If it's pre-damage calculation, but it's my own thing, do I still get the go again? But, no, because we haven't been through the damage. There's a lot of nuance there. And I'm assuming that Logan had the exact same experience, because he just put, we're going to talk about this.
Yeah. So, Josh.
Yes.
I understand that there's a lot of hearts that are in the right places when cards are made. A lot of good thoughts, a lot of good ideas. Sometimes we miss on execution. And I think that we need to own these things within ourselves. And so this caused the most questions during the Tampa event that I saw, period. Because it was always stuff like, okay, so can I bounce my opponent's attack that has go again and they don't have go again? Well, no. You can't. I block with these 2 cards, and then we get to damage or we get to the resolution step. Can I bounce the 2 cards that blocked back to your hand so I can block with them again? That one's a yes. And then the one I sent you, which was, there's no chain links. There's no combat chain. I just need this for the damage prevention off of Twinkle Toes. Can I just play this? Yep, sure can. Great. That's all. Yep. I guess. Play. Sure.
So
Why?
So it's an interesting card, and like again, this is one of those things where like when this came across my desk in terms of like when we were working on the rules and policy for this set was, is this going to be a problem? How can we make this as clear as possible without being super explicit and super like verbose about like when this can be used? Because there's always the case when these cards where you can put too much text on a card. Like you literally can just put paragraphs and paragraphs of text telling the player exactly how to use this card and when to use it and give these signals about those sorts of things on the card. Absolutely. Problem of doing so is that the card becomes uninteresting. The card becomes like people don't read the card. Even with explicit instructions, some people don't understand the card. So there needs to be a balance of like where a card lands in terms of its syntax. And so for this, I'm sure that there's probably a slightly more verbose way that we could have worded this card in the end. But I think the main thing is that we wanted to try and capture or encapsulate all of the functionality. We can use it on attack. You can use it on the defense. You can use it when there isn't an active chain link, hence why it doesn't target an active chain link. We wanted to be able to choose 0, so you can just play it without anything. Like there are so many avenues where this card wanted to be flexible, and we needed a wording on the syntax that allowed you to interpret it in those different ways to make it flexible. I'm sure that there probably is a better way to word this card in terms of its syntax and explore that space. And I can definitely foresee. I definitely foresaw the confusion that it may have caused, which is one of the reasons why I was a little bit concerned about how instance might have been a bit of an issue in the set. But I think that once players have played with the set a bit and given it some time to mature and give it some time to understand the ins and outs and edge cases of this card, I don't think it's going to be that much of a concern. Hence why we landed on the wording which we did for the card.
I do believe it's as self-explanatory as it gets, but it's not very self-explanatory. I got a birthday cake. So,
is this when we sing "Happy Birthday" to you?
No, please don't. But I'm gonna blow out my candle now because otherwise it's gonna burn down that.
Happy birthday to you,
you motherfucker!
What he said.
Okay, making a wish. There we go.
Hey.
Okay, I got cake now, so I'm gonna eat cake. I'm gonna have my cake. I'm gonna have my podcast and eat it too.
Let you eat cake.
Yes, we're gonna Marie Antoinette my cake.
I hope it's not
But it's an apple spice cake, so we'll find out if this is any good.
Tomorrow I'll make caramel sauce.
My wife is talking about making rum caramel sauce for it.
Tomorrow.
Okay, it's pretty good. All right.
Is that better than the carrot cake?
It's good.
Good.
All right. So this show is completely off the rails. We have a robot singing me happy birthday. I'm eating cake on air. But
so while you're eating, here, let me just pose this question. I know we covered it kind of already with the Gone in a Flash, but say for a new player with electromagnetic somersault, maybe just as brief as you can explain the pros and cons to when you would want to play at either pre-damage calculation or post-damage calculation. So Logan just alluded to one of them, which is you block with 2 cards from your hand, and then you can in the post calculation in the resolution step play it and then return them to your own hand to block with again, right? So it becomes if you block with 2-3 blocks like class cards or whatever, right, it could become you really just blocked with your somersault but got 6 value, which is really, really good, right? But yeah, I'll stop talking now because I just think that there's a lot of nuance to the application.
Yeah, so this card is actually a little bit, and it's funny to say this card is actually a little bit more simple than Gone in a Flash, because the key aspect here is that the returning of those cards happens when the chain link resolves. Sorry, dog scratching the floor.
I mean, that'll happen.
Yeah.
I'm eating cake. People are singing robot voices. Dogs are scratching the floor. Fuck it, we ball. Let's go.
So because the cards return when the chain link resolves, that means that at no point does your attack before damage the step actually leave the combat chain. The only thing that would happen for is Gone in a Flash if you played Electromagnetic Somersault and you choose to remove Gone in a Flash because you've played an instant. So the closing of the combat chain is irrelevant in that particular conversation. The relevant part of it is the go again side of things with last known information, and that is if your card existed and had go again before it got returned to your hand, then whatever state it's in is frozen in place and can't be changed. And if it had go again, you still gain the action point. If it doesn't have go again, then you won't gain the action point. So instead of thinking about when should this card be played on attack, you should be thinking about, are there specific triggers I need to order in the resolution step? So maybe you have an on-hit trigger that gives you go again, i.e. when this hits, it gets go again. You would want that to happen first so that your attack has go again, so that when you remove it from the chain link, the last known information captures that go again in place and you'll still gain the action point later on. If it gets removed from the chain link first, there's nothing to give go again to. You can't change the last known information about something that doesn't exist. So ordering of the triggers is more important on attack. As for the defending side, it's pretty self-explanatory. The chain link resolves happens after damage step, so you get full value out of your blocks. And there's not really that much else to it, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's an unmovable for free.
You highlighted at the beginning what I was hoping you were going to, which is when the chain link resolves part, right? Because that's what makes this, as you said, less complicated than Gone in a Flash, because it auto answers the questions like Logan was saying, right? Can I use this on my opponent's attack and then not take damage? Well, the answer is no, because it's when the chain link resolves, right? In many cases, that actually might be helping them. But yeah, that was what I was hoping that you were going to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can stop me from talking at any point. You can be like, right, Josh, that's enough rules. My brain.
No. So when I ask you, it's like I said, most of these I think I already know the answer, but a lot of the times I want you to be saying it so that there is a reference for new players and things like that, where they, it's not ambiguous, right? It's not like us guessing or talking over you or whatever. There is no misinterpretations, right? So there is a benefit to just letting you do your business.
Well, yeah.
I appreciate that, but I do know that I can ramble on about rules sometimes. So
What are you going to do? Keep us here for like 4 hours?
Never happened.
That would never happen. No, not even once. Never in the history. Except that one time.
Except for that one time. But okay, let's just touch on Meld a bit, mainly because it is one of the cornerstone mechanics of the set. It's one of the new things, right? And what I have here, and we do have a listener question on it, so I'm going to take some of the conversation and put it to the end. But when you started doing these, you saw the first ones come across. What were the first, what was your first thought? What was the whole okay, how do we do this and make it work?
Oh man, so when Meld split cards even just sort of came across, I was a little bit afraid, to be honest. We had just come out of MST with the Transcend cards, where we sort of had to create a new category of double-face card that didn't flip while it was in your deck, and sort of dealing with inner chi and different resource systems. So split cards coming across, I was like, this is scary and exciting at the same time. How are we going to handle these things? Because there are so many different ways that you can approach these different mechanics, and we didn't want to go ahead the split cards have happened before in other games, other games, Magic the Gathering, obviously, and there are other games out there as well that have had split cards in them. And we didn't want to just copy something wholesale. Like Fab has its own unique identity, and Split Cards doesn't belong to any one particular game. So when James was looking at Split Cards in particular, his emphasis was on we want this to feel like one card with two identities in a way that's like separate from a double face card or something, something similar. So that's why we have the one pitch bar, why we have the one cost, why we have the one color, why we have the one defense value, and then we have the split between the name, the artwork, the text, and the type box. And it's like, okay, if we're treating this as one card, is there any reason why we can't have this as just like one layer on the stack, and it just, whether or not you choose one side or the other or you're melding, all it does is change how this thing resolves. And that's ultimately where we ended up going. We had some guidance from the development team that they wanted resolution between the two sides of the card if you meld it. And it's like, okay, that means we basically resolve the same layer twice. And somebody asked, we were talking about this in the judge Discord, about like, how do you explain meld cards to a new player? If they're not interested in learning about the stack, or maybe it's a too high level concept or that sort of a thing. And I think the best way I found to describe these sorts of things to players is that, okay, imagine if you've got a bunch of chocolates, right? Like your cards are chocolates. And you put a chocolate down, that's you saying, I'm going to eat this chocolate. And before you eat that chocolate, somebody's like, before you eat that chocolate, I'm going to eat this chocolate. And they put that one on the top. And so, well, which chocolate do you eat first? You eat the one on top first because you need to eat that one before you get to the bottom. And these are bite-sized chocolates, so you only eat one at a time. Meld cards are like a bigger chocolate. So if you want to meld a card, you've got a big chocolate that you need to eat in 2 bites instead of 1. And you say, I'm going to play this meld card. And you put down a big chocolate. And it's like, cool. Do you have any response to me eating this chocolate? No, cool. And then you eat half of that chocolate and you're like, well, I'm going to eat the other half now. Do you have any response to that? No. Okay, cool. I'll eat the other half now. And that's essentially how meld cards work. They're just a bigger chocolate or a card that just needs to go through 2 resolutions before it gets fully removed from the stack.
That makes a lot of sense, and kind of want chocolate now.
Yeah, I think that conversation does lead to people being like, yeah, man, like we should probably go get some chocolate right now, shouldn't we?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is I'm normally not a big chocolate fan, except for I've learned that chocolate from not America doesn't suck. And that changes things a lot. And so when somebody that has access to really good chocolate, aka you, is talking about eating chocolate, suddenly I do want chocolate. So it changes the math, the chocolate equation, as it were. Maybe I should have named the show Chocolate Equation. That would have got some clicks. But
2 white guys talking about the chocolate equation.
There's 3 white guys here, sir.
Sorry. I'm a guest white guy though. So
Gosh, fair. Yeah. Oh God. Hey, Charmer, we canceled yet? Have you checked? Any rate. I've never seen you look so disappointed and so impressed ever in my life. That's a wonderful thing that happens.
Anywho,
let's move on to some quick news and notes hitters before we get to the questions, because there's a boatload. So ProQuest Europe events, we found out what the kit looks like. So obviously the gold foil and then the qualification to first. There is a pass down. So if the winner of the ProQuest is already qualified, then it will pass down to the second place, so the other finalists. There are CC and Rosetta draft ProQuest out there. I believe that was defined by LSS when they were sent to stores. Stores didn't get to pick what they were running. They were just kind of said, you get a CC, you get a draft, which that's reasonable, honestly. The kit includes 2 Blanche playmats for the top 2, and those look great, by the way. That is definitely a playmat art. The judge pack for the head judge, the Brutus playmat for the floor judge, The Rainbow Foil participations are Rune Rager Swarm and Deadwood Dirge, which, okay, those are both very playable. And then Rainbow Foil Rosetta Heroes. So it'll be extended art the same as they have been before for the top 8. So pretty standard stuff for ProQuest, but now that everything's kind of been revealed, we get to see the full picture. I do kind of want a Blanche playmat, not going to lie. I also want a qualification. That one is something else I want. Heading over into the October Armory kit, it is spooky season, so you get everybody's favorite Hot Topic intern Florian as your focus for the October Armory kit. So there's a Florian playmat for the People's Champion, and then your cold foils are Arcane Seeds. There's 4 of those, and then a Thistlebloom Life, Arcane Seeds Life. They're split cards. They have 2 names. And then the Rainbow Foil EAs are each color of Rootbound Carapace, which kudos for the team over at LSS for making Armory kits great again, because they felt a little lacking going the last few cycles, but kind of brought them back in a big way with putting cards that are very important to what CC is going to look like here very soon in the kits, and making them more desirable to help kind of drive that in-store play. So thank you to the team over there.
Yeah, and I think I think it is important to make sure that Armory is still kept an eye on in the community. I know I enjoy my local armories as the way that I end up playing the game the most, because I don't get the opportunity to go to those pro tour, the pro quests and road to nationals and whatnot. Local armories is how I enjoy the game the most due to my local community, and I want to make sure that the local community is enjoying armories too. So I think it's great that people are enjoying the new prizes, and it is a focus of the company to make sure that people continue to engage in these games and in their local community, and they have a reason to go weekly. And I'm sure that will be improved on in the future even further still.
Derek, do you have anything? Do you need a Florian playmat?
I mean, I don't need a Florian playmat, no, but...
You sure? He's a sad boy. You like sad boys.
No, I don't like people competing with my turf.
All right.
Maybe you need some Verdance in your life.
I think Verdance.
I think I need to commission me as Florian from Iswardi. I think that's the next step.
You know he listens to this, right?
I know.
All right. Well,
I think going to give him a ton of money when I see him in Osaka. So
that's possible.
I mean, now I'm very seriously considering what Florian would look like with Charmer's face as a commissioned art piece.
Yeah,
I think he would look good. With the long hair.
Yeah, get rid of the coward swoop. Give you some greased out long hair.
I have said that I would be open to growing my hair out and doing something really hipster. I want to do a top knot or something. Just
I hate you already.
Egregious. Yeah. Well, so that's just it. And so my wife was like, no. So we stick with the coward swoop. But I had talked a bit about man, I kind of want to grow it out. I haven't had hair that was longer than my ear. I think ever in my life. I got a little shaggy when I was in the 3rd grade, but
yeah. By the way, long hair just sucks. Just gonna throw that out there. Having to deal with this bullshit every day. Boy, the blades.
I love that. You still have long hair and you're just life is suffering.
There's a certain level of laziness that prevents me from having anything other than long hair, which is really weird because the care routine that I go through to keep this luxurious and the color to be vibrant and manageable is fucking rough. And I would make my life simpler by just shaving it all off and being done.
I can see that. I can see that care, man. Those luscious locks are shining through on camera.
Oh yeah, I mean it's natural hair color, baby. This is just sun-kissed auburn. It is what it is.
If you weren't wearing a headset, I'd ask for the whole like the Pantene head swoop back.
We're not doing that. But
okay.
But the care routine is just a fucking nightmare. Who's ready for listener questions? Because we got some shit to talk about, apparently.
All right, let's do it.
All right, first one, Justin S. coming in. For Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, by the way.
Mr.
That's Mr. Scott.
Mr.
Yep. Snag. Can you figure out a way to go back in time and remove the reminder text? This has caused a kerfluffle with some assassin players.
Yeah.
Remember what I said about errata, Josh? Remember how many times I've talked about errata, Josh?
Yep. Look, okay, right. A reminder text is not rules text. It is there to serve as a guide, even when it's wrong.
You're just out here fucking tapping the sign. It's like, reminders text isn't rules text, kids. Jesus.
Look, it was one of the concessions that we made with the CR 2.0. Like, it's one of those things like, new game comes out. There's a lot of areas to explore. There's minor ambiguities in some aspects of some interactions. The future design space begins to be explored, and those ambiguities then become conflicts in the rules that you just need to draw a line on. And for Snag, it's just something we had to draw a line on. So it is unfortunate that the reminder text leads people astray on Snag in particular. I wish it didn't. I wish I could just go back and work with James back in 2014, 2013 when he started
a long time
making
ago.
the game. Like that would be a dream scenario, but I think the next best thing that we can do is just focus on the future, focus on player education, and just never look at Snag again.
I guess that's one answer. Yes. Have you seen those assassin kerfluffles there, Charmer?
I mean, I haven't, but that's because nobody plays Snag against me. Like, legitimately, I haven't had it played against me once on all of my assassin games. And if it was, then I would also just know what it does. Like, that's just me personally, but...
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. The Snag is actually better with the chain. So I don't know what people are complaining.
Oh, it's way better. It went from the only time it was remotely useful was in the original chain meta, and then from there it was trash, like unplayable garbage. And then it's like, hey, let's make this so it applies retroactively. Oh, we're back to play.
Yay! Now it works.
Now it works.
Yay!
Moving on, this one's from Orc Knights. This is a long one, so bear with me. Is there any thought or discussion about collating the language of prevention effects so they are less confusing for players and more in line with what they say on the printed cards? For example, Tiger Stripe Shuko versus Trip the Light Fantastic or versus something with Ward. Currently, Shuko's effect will eat the ward, but not the effect of Trip the Light Fantastic. Judges have basically narrowed it down to prevent the next X and next time. Prevent the next X not being eaten by Shuko is the opposite of what happens during the next time. This can be quite confusing for new and enfranchised players alike. Anytime there is a new prevention effect or template produced, would it cause any harm or break anything if one of those templates had, if the damage is preventable, prevent X or something along those lines?
Yeah, so there's always a danger in changing syntax, especially syntax that already has quite a history. So like we've introduced prevents syntax since... Trying to think. Crucible of War, I think, has...
I'll say Crew would be the first one I could think of.
Yes. No, actually, Bonehead...
Oh, Bonehead Barrier is
so
in WTR. Yep.
Yeah, so WTR and Arcane Rising had prevention effects. Yeah, of course, Arcane Rising had prevention effects. Had
Arcane Barrier. But...
Yeah. Anyway, so there's always a danger in changing syntax, because as soon as you change how something is written, you have old cards that you need to have a collective understanding as a community how to translate that into the new syntax. If you add something in like if the damage is preventable, prevent X, there are a couple of complications. One, you're adding additional words. Two, you're adding alliteration, which is quite hard to parse. So preventable, prevent is something that is quite hard to like linguistically parse, that we take into consideration. We try to avoid saying things like an attacking attack, for example. We want people to be able to read these cards without just having to reread it again, in that sense. And the other aspect as well is just if you add something to a card in terms of its syntax and it's close enough to the old syntax, people will think that it acts differently to how it previously acted. So if the damage is preventable, prevent X, means that, does that mean if the damage wasn't preventable, the previous cards could still prevent X? And that introduces additional concerns about how we can educate the player base and make sure that everybody is ruling correctly. That being said, though, I am aware of the issue with the comprehension of things like prevent the next X versus the next time you would be dealt damage, prevent X of it. While the space gets continued to explore in future, we will be exploring more syntax and options for those particular effects to see if there are ways where we can delineate the difference between those two, or accentuate the difference a bit more easily, or a bit to increase that comprehension or to increase that education. But it's not going to be a quick and simple fix. It's not something that we have a fix for right now. That being said, we are still working towards, the eventual goal of creating or continuing to educate the player base. I can say from the rules and policy perspective, there are slight wording changes that we're using with the comprehensive rules update. And we're talking about, instead of ongoing versus one-off prevention effect, we're changing the wording to something similar like shielding prevention effect, to create a more concrete view of what this prevention effect does, so that judges can be better educated and therefore hopefully have a flow-on effect for the general populace. The wording that we use in the CR at the moment is quite technical, and it's technical because we needed to have something that was correct in a way. But now that we're at the point where we can start to manipulate the CR to become more readable and use more player-friendly terms, we're hoping that will, again, add to the player education on that sort of a front of the game.
Okay. That makes sense to me, honestly. It's very difficult with things that are prevention and then can't be prevented. This has existed in every game I've ever played. So nothing new here, really, from a TCG standpoint. Yeah, I can understand why you would why people would want the game to check if this could be prevented, to have a prevention, but that's also just boring. I like watching all of Prism's shit blow up because fuck illusionists. That's basically where I'm going with this.
Enigma, Prism, Dramai in some cases. Just want
fuck them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
They don't deserve shit.
They don't deserve shit. It came from the man himself. They don't deserve shit, Mara. At any rate. I'm
sorry, Mara.
No, you're not. This one from Greg, our esteemed producer. Really a god among men. There's nothing bad to be said about Greg. Greg's great. Josh, sometime you need to meet Greg. You'll love Greg.
I have something bad to say about Greg.
Oh, let's go.
Are you ready?
I am.
I know you're waiting with bated breath, Greg. My biggest problem with Greg, and it kind of has been since the day I met him, is that I don't get to spend enough time with Greg, and he should fix that. The next time I say drive to Michigan and go to a concert with me, he needs to do it instead of not giving me. He gives me some excuse like, "Oh, it's so far. Just
I'm in
make the
Italy."
drive." Yeah.
Fuck off, Greg. All right. Greg asked, what card would you delete from the game because of the headache it's caused you from trying to help the dev team make it work within the comprehensive rules? We're also going to ask the bonus question. What one?
Forked lightning.
Oh, forked
lightning. Yeah, forked lightning. I hate that card. I hate that card so much.
Can I ask you a question? Why is forked lightning not a lightning card? Can we errata that? I know how much Logan likes errata anyway, so can we make forked lightning a lightning card?
There are 3 cards. There are 3 cards that come to mind. Forked lightning is one of them. Gambler's Gloves is another one, and Caution Crossroads of the Element is the third one.
Okay, that makes sense.
Every other card, I don't know, I could say something like Yorick, Shiana, and I don't know, something else. Those cards are fine because they're interesting rules wise. There's cool technicalities and card combos, and whenever we do hypotheticals or talk about card interactions, it's always, well, in a Yorick game, you could combine this card with this card, and then what happens? But when it comes to things like Forked Lightning, Gambler's Gloves, and Caution Crossroad of the Elements, I'm just like, oh my god, I have to delve into another deep, dark pit of the CR again and rewrite for the 5th time how these rules work in order to maintain. This does not even change the functionality. Maintain the functionality so the internal consistency of the logic that I have to work with actually makes sense. And it's always those 3 fucking cards that always get me.
Well, all right. That's as agitated, I think, as if I've ever seen you. So that's a thing.
Anyway, moving on.
The bonus question is, which set gave you more trouble, Part the Mistveil or Rosetta?
I
know you'll have to think back a year at this point.
I think Part the Mistveil gave me the most trouble. I think that there were so many intricacies with flip cards and cloaked cards, not only from the rules perspective, but also from the policy perspective, that we just had to account for and come to a conclusion on, that gave me the most trouble. And there was a lot of back and forth about syntaxing and how these cards would function within the rules. And yeah, I think MST was just harder. ROS wasn't as bad because a lot of the cards were straightforward regarding things like Decompose and Lightning cards. And again, we're revisiting a set that we've sort of explored a lot of these themes before. So the concepts that we were exploring weren't too far away from what we had done before. Obviously, Meld cards and split cards were a little bit different to what I had expected. Not expected, but what we had done before. So there was a bit of work involved there. But MST on the whole with Cloaked and Transcend cards just kicked my ass for quite a while. So that was definitely the set that gave me the most trouble.
Also, fuck Corsham.
Oh yeah, fuck Caution. Just general, fuck Caution.
Fuck Caution.
I love Caution. I love the card. The artwork is amazing. It's a really cool effect. I have the cold foil. I have a rainbow foil. But rules wise, man, fuck Caution.
Perfect. All right. Charmer, do you have anything to add? Would you like to also fuck Corsham?
I love Corsham, and I kind of hope that it's playable for real someday. And
me too, so I can offload my cold foils.
Well, I mean, so sure, there's whatever reason there, but there is something special in my heart for Corsham just because for a couple of reasons. One, it was the first Fable that I ever pulled, and when I pulled it, I was opening way too many packs because I was gambling to feed my emotions, right? Get out of my depression. So I'm just like, all right, I'll open packs from home.
I do that a lot.
So I opened 2 cold foils like the weekend of the release. This was back when they were like $500 a pop or whatever. So like there's that memory, but the thing that always jumps out to me specifically about Corsham and the cold foil is that they gave it like the whimsical text. And I know that for new players, that's like not the best. And I know that it's probably going to drive you nuts, Logan. But I like that. I like that you can have a whimsical version of a card. To me, it's no different when you do like an extended art version of something, and then you also give no reminder text on something because it's like the alt art version, right?
No, it's not like that at all.
No, and it is, because the whimsical text still means the same as the regular. It's just whimsical.
But it tells you to travel to fucking Corsham.
Okay.
Am I supposed to like go into like put on my shoes and walk to this dumb fucking tree before anything happens? Like, honestly, what does travel to Corsham mean, dumbass?
Honestly, if that upsets you that much, I think you should travel to Corsham. You clearly need to touch grass.
Oh my fucking God. Okay. Before I'm moving on.
I'm just saying, I like that. That is, maybe that's my hot take or whatever, but I like the whimsical text of like just the cold foil version. I think it's cool.
It's not on the rainbow foil?
No.
Really?
Because rainbow foil was printed for Unlimited. That's when they were still doing first edition, and they reverted the text.
No, actually, it's
both.
The rainbow foil has the original. I think it was the. I'm looking at the card database. I can't actually find I don't think we've ever printed it with.
Oh, really? I thought for sure that on the rainbow that it did the same thing that was in the card database, but
all of them say, when you arrive at the legendary Corsham, go again. Whenever a hero reveals a card, they gain resource, or gain life, or their next attack this day gains +1 power, or the next attack action card they defend with this day gets +1 defense. At sunset each day, depart Corsham if no hero gained resources, life, power, or defense. Fuck this card!
No, that's so cool, dude.
I could listen to you performing in that accent all day.
Thank you for that. But fucking God bless Texas. What the shit? Any rate. And I hate Texas. Anywho, moving on. Vintox, one of your judges, asks, for Josh, when will Arclight Sentinel get banned so all us judges can breathe a sigh of relief?
And never. It's gonna plague Leveling Lebanon forever, probably. So
yeah.
Sorry guys, you have to continue to learn how Spectra and attack targeting works. What a shame that you have to learn. What a shame that you have to. Here's the thing, right? Like, yeah, Spectra sucks as a mechanic in terms of like having to like play against a prism with like 50 Spectra on board and then having to like shoot one down one a turn while they replace it. That being said, though, I think it has been a fantastic boon for the judge community because they've had to learn how the attack system works properly. And I couldn't ask for anything better for teaching my judges how to play the game.
That's fair. Like, yeah, it's, I don't know. Like, a lot of people have a lot of problems with Arclight Sentinel, and I like,
it's not the end of the world to face down a bunch of Spectra and Arclight Sentinel. Like, there are a lot more tools to be able to face it, especially with like Aura Destruction coming out in Part the Misfail and with Rosetta as well. So, I'm excited to see like what sort of how people are going to utilize those to be able to defeat things like Spectra cards and the auras that Prism and Enigma start to pull out, especially in Classic Constructed and Living Legends. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, just make more of it so that every class has the ability to just blow up auras at will. That'd be great. Next one is from Soft Sloth. There we go. For Josh, why are there no release notes for new cards outside of the main sets and occasionally things like Round the Table or First Strike? For example, there's a lot of confusion about Savage Sash and Blaze. We've been there already. That I think would really benefit from having specific release notes to clear up how they interact.
So Like I was alluding to earlier, like these cards that come out of a non-core set or a non-standard release cycle, it's a bit harder to disseminate information from them because we get dribbles of information, and because they're not part of a set, people aren't looking towards the release of that set as much as they are for things like core sets. So we bundle these, like, you know, the ROS and the First Strike release notes together, just like we did for Bright Lights and Round the Table. But our movement moving forward with this is that because we've got the card database, we're going to be looking at introducing additional rulings on those cards as they start to get released. So instead of going through the realm of creating release notes for every single card and putting out a release note statement and trying to drive, like, you know, traffic in that direction, our approach in the future is going to be that we're going to be looking at populating the card database with rulings on these cards, which we're going to manage and keep up to date, essentially like a living document of release notes for these cards. And that's how we're going to be looking at disseminating important ruling information for cards like Blaze and for cards like Savage Sash as they trickle out through these supplementary products like these armory decks, like these promos, and like Round the Table and whatnot like that. So just keep that in mind, that we have got this on our radar, and we are looking for to implement this solution to help with that aspect of gameplay. But it is going to take a little bit of time to go ahead and populate that for our other cards as well, because we're interested in making sure that this is not going to be just a resource for just Blaze or just Savage Sash, but this is going to be a resource for all the cards that we have printed for Flesh and Blood.
Perfect. Moving to the next one, Matt Tutokes, love us some Matt, says, not fab related. Other than card games, what other games bring you joy or fun times and memories? Tabletop, PC, console? Feel free to indulge, Logan and Charmer. Let's get to 5 hours. We're not going to make 5 hours. We're at 2:06. It will probably be a 2:30 ball, which is still pretty good. So halfway there.
Decent.
Yeah, decent. So what else do you do? What do you enjoy?
Charmer, go ahead. tell me what you love.
For you to indulge Logan and I.
So you got to start.
Oh, right. Okay.
But also, here, I can give you the answer. I don't experience joy.
All right. Fair enough. So I guess outside of Flesh and Blood, we're not talking sports, but tabletop games, the biggest one that I play is probably Go, also known as Weichi or Baduk in Korean, or Igor in Japanese.
Yeah.
I played a funny story. I played a little bit in when I was at university. I was like, man, chess is cool, but I don't want to be a mainstream chess player. I want to be like some hipster who plays like some cool like foreign chess-like game and be really good at it. So I got really interested in Go, and I tried to play it, and I was trying to like learn off like the description of the rules, which are incredibly simple, but I was terrible at it, and there was nobody who wanted to play with me because I was trying to be a hipster, and I eventually gave it up. But then it was about 2015, 2016, where we were basically... dog scratching the floor again, my bad. 2015, 2016, where AlphaGo had sort of like hit the market, where DeepMind and Google and whatnot were basically collaborating to create this AI to beat people in Go. And that sort of reinvigorated my interest in the game. And so I was following along with that. I was like learning how to play online and everything. But the key turning point in my interest came when I actually went to Japan. And I was like, hey, like, you know, Japan has like people who play Go. I wonder if there's a place I can go and play. So I went to this place called the Nihon Ken, which is like the center of one of the major like federations essentially for Go in Japan. And I contacted them and I was like, hey, like, you know, can I come play? They're like, yeah, come on I think it was like a Thursday night or something. There are a whole bunch of, of the older generation there, very easygoing players. They weren't competitive, so it's just about my level. And I played some, I had some good times. And then just as I was about to leave the Nihonkin, this woman comes down out of the elevator and she like sort of stops me and she's like, have you just like come to play Go? I'm like, yeah. She's like, where are you from? I'm like, from New Zealand. I'm just here on like a trip, for vacation sort of a thing. And I thought I'd just come by and play some Go. She's like, oh, yeah. Would you like to be my guest tonight at this private Go club that I'm going to? And I'm like, what?
You don't say no to that.
And she's like, let me introduce myself. My name is Chizu Kobayashi. I'm a professional Go player here at the Nihonkin. I'm actually one of the directors of the Nihonkin. I'm just about to go to a private Go club to see my brother and who's taking like this private Go lesson, and I'd like you to join me as my guest. And I was like, okay, like this isn't in my schedule for the day, but like let's go on this ride. And that conversation ended up leading. I met Satoru Kobayashi, who's like who was a 9-dan professional Go player at the time in Japan. I got to play with him. I met a whole bunch of other English-speaking professional Go players. I ended up being tutored by another professional just like because I was there at the right time, right place. And then after that trip, I was just so enthralled by Go, I ended up starting up a Go club in Wellington where I was studying at the time and just have been playing ever since. And it's just been a joy in my life to be able to sit down and occasionally play a proper game of Go.
That is rare. I don't come across many people that know what Go is.
Yeah.
Much less like an enthusiast. So that is very different.
Do you guys know how to play?
I don't know how to play. I have only just witnessed and watched as somebody was just basically told me kind of the same as you, where I've never been able to get into chess. Like for whatever reason, I don't know if it's a hipster thing. Maybe I don't fucking know. But I've never really been able to get into chess, and they're like, well, you should look at Go then. I'm like, all right. And so I started watching videos of Go, and I'm just like, holy shit. This is a strategic. I think it would melt my brain. Like quite honestly.
I think the one problem with Go, at least in sort of like the Western area, is like unless you're being taught in person, I think it is nigh impossible to grasp from online instruction or just from like reading the rules and like reading strategy and whatnot. I really struggled with Go until I found people who knew how to play the game, and I could bounce back and forth about like talking about strategy and talking about the basics. And apologize about my dog squeaking in the background.
Zuko can do this. He's fine.
Hold on.
But yeah, the next time that you're in the States or that I'm somewhere that you're at, you'll have to teach me Go.
100%. I will bring my 9x9 Go board and some Go stones, and we will learn how to play in person. I will make that a promise.
Because that would be fantastic. I've always wanted to learn. I mean, it seems like it is the most strategically deep game because the options are virtually unlimited.
I think like for me it was I love it because, and this is kind of like why I love Fab as well, is like you're very rarely in a spot where you just get absolutely dominated. Like, you can't play a game of Go where, you're 2 or 3 stones stronger than someone and just like get the whole board to yourself. You're always going to have to concede some points or some groups, or you're going to have to concede something to get the upper hand. And I really loved that about it because it felt more engaging. It felt like I had more agency than I did in something like chess, where when I was playing chess, like, don't get me wrong, chess is a good game. Chess is a fun game, but it's just not for me. And when I played chess, it was like there was always a gotcha moment where I was like coming up with a strategy, I was making a plan, and then all of a sudden there was just one move and it was like, cool, that's checkmate, done. It's like, oh, I wanted to play more. I wanted to continue this game until its conclusion. Whereas like in Go and kind of like Fab, like you're on this mission, you're on this engagement, you've got this long-term plan, but it's made up of strategic back and forth small battles, and you can both sort of come to this conclusion together to the end of the game. And that's what I love about Go, and that's what I love about Fab as well. So it's sort of as a nice marrying of those ideas. But yeah, great games, both of them.
This is instructional of how Joshua Scott is a professional, because he just tied it back. See that shit?
Yeah.
He's tied it back.
Hey, speaking of tying it back, if you just come to Japan with me, Logan, he could teach us there in person.
Yeah.
Yes, if I find the $5,000 in my couch cushions, I'll be sure to make sure I let you know. Charmer, I know that you play Fortnite with Monroe and Stark. And then, but outside of that, I don't know what other games you play a lot. I mean, non-card games.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you mean?
I know, non-card games.
So the problem with that statement is the word "a lot." I don't get to play many of the games that I enjoy a lot, largely because most of the other games that I enjoy, they require other people, and I just don't really have that here. Most of the people that I get together and play games with, it is for card games, and then just because of trying to juggle schedules and whatever, it's very difficult. I love tabletop RPGs. Whether it's Dungeons and Dragons or any of the Talsorian games or the recent Dragon Prince game or whatever. Like, I got a bunch of books on the shelf behind me, but it's not like I have an active campaign or anything going because I don't have a regular group. Similarly, I love board games. And I've said before on this, to me, any board game that takes longer to set up than it does to play has a special spot in my heart. So, Twilight Imperium.
I say Twilight Imperium is always the example.
Yep, is right up there. Like, I kickstarted the Witcher board game that takes a long time to set up, and I have like everything from the Horizon Zero Dawn, like literally it's like the base game and then like 8 expansions or whatever for it all on shelves back there. Stuff like that. You just don't get to do it often because they require friends, I mean, it's, you laugh while you want, but like that is a limiting factor.
That's the crux of multiplayer games, right? You just gotta have friends. Why don't they come with friends? Why, like, how they don't, the batteries included in toys now? Like, I think that board games should come with friends.
That's called human trafficking, Joshua, and it's frowned upon, in case you didn't know. I mean,
so there's those things. I mean, other things that I do for joy, I love casting, so I actively seek that out, just because
when do you do it though?
But
yeah. At any rate, I'm hard at work on the Flesh and Blood RPG. I'm definitely trying to make it work, and have spent not near enough time working on it, but it's something that I've thought about a lot. I have a concept of a plan, as someone once said, but
if you just gave me like free reign, if you said like, hey, we're going to do a Flesh and Blood RPG and here is your system, whether they're going to do like the D20, because I know that D20 for a bit was like open source. I don't know if you still technically have to license it or not, if you still have to. So like, if you said you want to do the D20, I would be like, okay, that's enough for me to start. And I would probably go off the deep end. There's some other systems that I also really enjoy as well. But yeah, like if you gave me a framework, and you were willing to conference call with me, Josh, we could make this happen.
I mean, wait, why am I being frozen out again?
Well, it's because I need him to make sure that my rules stuff works, because I'm about the fun player agency side, and then I need him to tell me whether or not we can do it.
But yeah, that got conceptualized on one of these shows where somebody was like, somebody should do a fab RPG, and I'm like, I mean, I could do that. I've DM'd a lot and wasn't bad at it and very good at coming up with shit on the fly, so I could probably write that. And so I've been developing thoughts of how I would go about it, how I would travel through the world, where you would end up at, like what conflict you would want to center on, and as like your beginning point. I've gone through that. I've also gone through like what maps would look like and what, how to make it flavorful. Like I've done a lot of that outlining. I also know that I don't own this copyright or anything like that, and I tread the line on the Flesh and Blood copyright pretty hard already. So maybe I don't necessarily want to do that, but I'd obviously never be doing this for profit. It would just be hey, here's something interesting so you can see the lore of Flesh and Blood, up close and personal or whatever. But yeah, that's something I kicked around and have continually kicked around. But most of my like outside of card gaming stuff is just Kingdom Death Monster. That game just likes to beat the shit out of me. And so like last night, we finally, in one of the campaigns, made it to the final boss and realized as soon as we started reading what the final boss does, because we know spoilers, we were just trying to figure it out, that we had forgotten to add a very necessary monster to our quarry list, which means that you get to hunt them and craft gear off of what they drop. And we were severely undergeared and we are going to die. Plus, the mechanic of the monster has a thing where because you go out with 5 characters, and whenever the boss in this case kills you down to below 4, another member from your settlement joins into the fight. So it's just kind of rotating in because he kills very fast. Well, we hit an event right before that killed 20 of our 24 members of our settlement. That's a problem. Because now we don't have bodies to cycle in.
You don't have a settlement anymore. You have...
No, we have a group.
We have a ragtag gang.
So that ended the campaign abruptly. We just died. So, oops. And now we have to go and if we ever want to try it again, we have to start from 0. And that's just the brutality of Kingdom Death Monster. It is a fucking nightmare. But it's fun.
I will say this. If Flesh and Blood was ever going to do something outside of standard tabletop RPG where they were, again, like either doing the D20 or D6s, I have seen some of the Critical Role people have been demoing a double D12 system that I actually think is kind of neat as well. But if they were ever going to do something outside of that, just because I feel like it would be a nice tie-in to the actual card game itself. Doing something kind of like Gloomhaven oriented, I think could be neat.
So AI based. Yeah.
Well, but also kind of AI, but also I was thinking more like where your character abilities can be represented by cards, right? So you kind of just like you build into that theme. You can still have the classes and maybe even you just play as some of the heroes or whatever, but you could do it like Gloomhaven style and still get that RPG effect.
I think Josh is typing up a message to have us serve with a cease and desist. But so I mean, like I like RPGs, but in a lot, I don't have time a lot for video games. Like I said, I have my Kingdom Death Monster campaigns with other people that are also fab players. But yeah, I think that there is a lot of crossover in the types of spaces what people enjoy. So hearing Josh loving Go doesn't surprise me, although, again, having the hands-on experience with Go is surprising because don't know a lot of people that do. Twilight Imperium though,
I love what a game.
It's an incredible game, but it's an incredible pain in the ass.
No, man, I love that game.
I do enjoy it. I do love myself some TI, but man. Next question, because why fappers? Every time every time we have a guest on this show, you have to lean into your DGen selves just that much. So here we are again with everybody's favorite game, Fuck, Marry, Kill, because why not? This time, this is Vintox, one of your judges, Josh. Question for all people on this episode. Fuck, Marry, Kill Rosetta heroes. Twist is the one you don't pick becomes your stalker. Josh, you have the floor.
So, I'd say fuck Acilio, marry Florian, kill Aurora, and then Verdance becomes the stalker.
That's strong. I mean, I think that you took the right player out of the game for stalker. Let's put it that way. by leaps and bounds, I think that's the case.
Well, look,
Derek,
Acilio needs some love. Florian is a realist, and like stability, right? Like he just knows how the world works. Aurora, like, I don't know. I don't see her fitting into any of those categories. And her being the stalker is like, I think I couldn't handle
questionable.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't handle that. I mean, Verdance would be, I could get away with Verdance being the stalker. Like that would be the least, how do you say, I could live with that situation, but
fair.
Yeah. I think that's
fair.
how I would go about it.
Derek, you're up.
So we're going to kill Acilio because I don't know what Acilio is. So I'm just going to blast it from space. Not taking any chances. We kill it with fire. We're going to fuck Aurora because being a lightning hero, she won't care that I'm also quick. We're going to marry Verdance because she looks like my wife, and so I'm kind of already married to it anyway. Hey, fun fact about Verdance. Her dance is a salsa. Did you know that? It's a salsa verde. And
fuck
then
off.
I'm going to have Florian stalk me because if I'm going to get stalked, I want it to be done right. And the emo guy seems like the S tier of the stalkers in that group. And so I just need, like, with my clinical depression, your average run-of-the-mill stalker's not going to do it for me, right? Like, if you're going to make me feel something, it's got to be from the emo guy, so he can stalk me.
Yeah, so my lineup is actually identical to Charmer here. We're definitely fucking Aurora, largely because she just reminds me from a lot of girls that I was with in the past, and you know they're still there, which is I guess good. In the past, I mean. We're definitely marrying Verdance because I'm pretty sure the nurturing aspect is probably good for mental health, if nothing else. Just seems like she'd be a very good caretaker. Make sure that your needs are met. Everything would be great. I'm fucking killing Acilio. There is no goddamn way I'm leaving that on the board. Whatever that is, I want.
I do not need him to construct additional pylons.
Have you guys?
Hell no.
Have you guys not read the lore? Acilio is like the coolest guy ever.
Agreed.
Or coolest construct ever.
Agreed. But if I do not want that, if this is my lane over here with Aurora and Verdance, then I don't want any part of Acilio stopping me.
Listen,
that's it.
Fair. Okay.
I'm gonna go with this. There has never once been any sort of film or story, or there exists no trope where you make friends with the sentient construct, the AI, if you will, and things go poorly. That has just never happened. And so I think Josh has won me over, right?
Yeah. The Day the Earth Stood Still has never been made as a film or a book or anything that you could really glean that out of. Or Terminator,
We're gonna start
the
calling
entire
Acilio
franchise.
Hal.
or 2001: A Space Odyssey, or I mean, we have a list, motherfucker. Like, no. Now, Florian, dude.
What about the Iron Giant?
Okay,
I don't trust Vin Diesel. I'm sorry.
What?
You don't trust Vin Diesel?
I don't trust Vin Diesel.
Oh.
Should we just end the podcast
all about
here?
Family thing. It's such a cult line.
Okay. Sure. Florian, I am not concerned with Florian as a stalker. I think that he's basically Stan from the Eminem song, and he's not coming after me. He's going to like drive his pregnant girlfriend off a bridge or something. Like, that's probably what's going to happen. So I'll be safe. And I think he's probably just gonna be shitty at it. He's gonna write me letters. They're gonna get progressively more aggressive. Eventually, he'll try to sign one in his own blood, and then figure out that he doesn't have the gumption to cut himself enough to do it. Like, there's gonna be a lot of that happens. I mean, he's working his shitty Hot Topic internship, and and honestly, if he did actually get the gumption, that homeboy hasn't showered in years. I'm gonna smell him coming. Like, I'm not worried about any of this. So Florian, sure, whatever. Like, he can stalk me all day long. I don't care. We also have a bonus fuck, marry, kill just for Josh on this one because reasons. This is also from one of your judges. You maybe want to rethink this program.
Yeah.
Fuck, marry, kill. Tournament rules and policy. Comprehensive rules. Or what's the PG? That's the
PPG, the penalty procedure guideline.
Penalties, procedures. Yep. Okay. Fuck, marry, kill. Go.
All right. Fuck comprehensive rules, definitely. Marry the tournament rules and policy, kill the PPG.
All right, fuck the player guide. We don't need them.
Yeah.
The penalty guidance. Who cares?
We don't need penalty procedure guide. Tournament rules and policy outlines everything that's needed for stability, and like comprehensive rules. Like, yeah, let's just go.
This is the same judge, by the way, that wanted me to have you go in depth on inline triggers because he wanted to see if we could hit 5 hours. And I said no.
Maybe not this episode. Look, it's much better that we naturally get to 5 hours from conversation than trying to force it. Like, we're here for a good time, and then if it's a long time, that's also great.
Next one, we got 2 more. We got 3 more technically because you asked one. Because why wouldn't you? This one's from Sergeant Snipes. Question for Josh. What alcohol has made you so sick that you swore to never touch it with a 10-foot pole again? And what's the story behind that loaded night? If you don't drink, switch the question to Charper.
So I didn't drink until I started traveling for Fab, and then I started drinking. So the craziest night that I've had probably... Now, I don't know what alcohol it was. I went out for karaoke with mates. We preloaded. We went to karaoke. We had soju at karaoke. That shit is deceptively potent, I would say.
Regret juice is what soju is.
It really is. I can't remember exactly how many we put back, but we were just on the precipice of like greatness, essentially. And so we ended the night, like karaoke had finished. We were, I was just hanging about, and I was like, oh, well, like, why don't we just hang out for a bit longer? Like, I'm riding the wave right now. I think I'm in a good spot. Like, let's keep this night going. So we went to a bar called Rockpool. And if you're in Christchurch or you know Christchurch and you know Rockpool, you probably know what drink we went for. And it's a thing called the teapot. And I don't know what they put in the teapot. I can't actually remember it clearly enough. But they serve it in a teapot, and then you pour shots out of this teapot. And I think that's what put me over the edge. I don't know what was in it, how potent it was, but after that, I was just gone. And I don't know if I could stand going back to Rockpool with the teapot ever again. But that's probably the wildest drinking night I've had. You guys?
Well, I am going to go ahead and defer to Charmer, because if I start talking about these, it gets real weird real fast. Because there's a lot of them, and some of them are questionable, but I will tell those stories in person on After Dark as much as you want me to.
All right, sounds good.
They are. I have not led a very. I forget that life should be mundane at times, and decide to live it on hard mode instead. And yeah, there have been some nights. Derek, anything that you can report?
Yeah, I mean, mine's really tame. I don't really drink a lot, and when I do, it's usually to taste, because there are just some drinks that happen to be alcoholic that I just really like the taste of. I love hard cider. Logan knows my go-to alcoholic beverage of choice is a mojito, because I love mint and I love lime, and I usually love other variations. So like a raspberry or a blackberry mojito are also right up my alley. The only time that I've ever really even had a negative experience, because even though I don't drink often, I come from a very long line of just raging alcoholics. So even when I do drink, I can usually hold my own pretty well. Hence the reason I was the one person who was fine at that Realm event where other people were not.
Not naming names.
Yeah.
There are names we could name.
So the one time that I had a problem, like many folks, it was in my youth, right? The first time that I got carried away, if you will, was with some friends, underage, as a teen, drinking, and I don't remember how much I had, but I just know that I had a lot of two specific types of drinks that did not go well together. But again, when you're a young teen and you're just thrilled with getting away with whatever. So I drank quite a bit of sour apple pucker and Fireball on the same night.
No.
The next morning, so at this time I was a teenager, but I was working part-time at a pet grooming place where I was the bather, right? So there was like a chest-high tub, and you would bring in cats and dogs or whatever, and I would do the washing. So I am nursing the worst hangover I've ever had in my entire life.
That'll do it.
And I remember they brought in this really large dog. I think it was a Chow or a German Shepherd or something about that size, right? I got to be honest, even during the hangover, I'm a little fuzzy on it. And I do now, as I'm older, I do appreciate that, like, in order to wash the dogs, I probably should have done hair of the dog before I went to work. But anyway, I just remember I'm in this back room. I'm nursing the worst hangover I've ever had. And it's like an enclosed area and like the tub. And so as the dog was barking, because it was excited to get a bath, it was a dog that liked water, but it kept barking and it was like echoing. It felt like it was just all going right into my ears, and then my head started, and then I just started puking in the tub that I'm supposed to be washing. No, not on the dog, but I puke in this tub, and I got fired that day. Like, I do remember that. I got fired that day. But again, like, I was an irresponsible teen. I had it coming, right? Totally my fault. I should not. But the reason I mentioned this story is, one, it's like the only time I've ever like vomited from a hangover. It's the only time I've ever felt really bad even from a hangover. But also, I will say this. The headache from the dog barking combined with sour apple pucker and Fireball whiskey coming back up. Like, I thought it was bad going down.
No, it's worse.
It felt like I was puking acid. Like, just straight, like, alien xenomorph gonna melt through this tub acid. So I have not had either of those particular liquors since. and I can't imagine ever being interested in trying either one of them again because of that.
And good on you for that.
Well, I'm sorry that happened to you.
I mean, it was a learning opportunity. It was a teachable moment for myself because I was doing stuff I should not have been doing in quantities I should not have been doing. On a work night, all of the things. So I grew a lot that day.
I mean, Derek did get to see me go in it to win it on a cruise ship. So
oh yeah,
never without a drink in my hand. Second to last question for Josh. How do we meld? This is from Matt Two Tokes again, by the way. How do we meld cards, and why can we hold priority between each half?
How do we meld cards? So, melding cards is yes, exactly as Shamu was demonstrating, interlocking the fingers and saying meld. No,
that's like smooth jazz.
Meld. Yeah. No, so melding cards. If a card has meld on it, you basically just say, look, I want to play both of these halves, or I want to play this card with both halves as the card. It takes on the properties of the entirety of the card, so it'll have two names, all of the properties in the type box, and all of the abilities that are labeled in two of the text boxes. To do that, you need to pay twice the cost of the card. So for Comet Storm Shock, for example, the base cost of the card is 2, which means that when you start calculating costs, that doubles up to 4, and that's where you start from. Then if there are any increases or decreases to the cost of playing a card, that applies after you start from 4 cost for playing the card. Then it goes on to the stack. And like I said with the chocolate analogy earlier in the episode, you resolve it by saying, okay, I'm going to resolve this card now. You take one bite of the chocolate, i.e. you're resolving one side of the card. In this case, if you've melded, it's the right side of the card first. And then when that has happened, you immediately get priority as the turn player. And you can play another instant, for example. And that means that you can go ahead and do amp, for example, onto Comet Storm Shock, or you can play additional instants after gaining life for something like Verdance. And after that's happened and you go revisit that card again, that meld card that you've only resolved once, you're basically going and taking that second bite of chocolate. You're resolving that second half of that card. And then after that has been completed, that card goes to the graveyard. So it's sitting on that stack, having resolved once but not twice. Once you resolve it that second time, it gets moved to the graveyard. And that's how you play and resolve Meld.
So with cards that prevent a specific card from being played, like let's say that you have Chains of Eminence is one that you can, or not Chains of Is it Chains of Eminence? The one you can name a card and it can't be played, pitched or played, or something,
or censor.
Yep. Or censor, sure.
I think censor is a better option.
And you name Comet Storm. Could you still play Shock?
Yep. That's right. So if you're doing something like, let's take Chains of Eminence, for example, because Chains of Eminence says that you can't play, pitch, or defend with the named card, which essentially locks you out from doing anything with it. But for these split cards, the only thing that you could do is play the card without that name. So if you say have Comet Storm Shock and they name Comet Storm, you could still play the Shock for 2 cost, essentially, because you're announcing it, you're putting it onto the stack, and you're saying, this card here is Shock. Then when you go and check the legality of whether or not it's legal to be played, the card has the name Shock. It doesn't have Comet Storm or the ability of Comet Storm or the action type of Comet Storm. It is just Shock. And the same applies to defending and pitching, but the problem with that is you can't choose which side you're defending with or the side that you're pitching. You're pitching the whole card or you're defending with the whole card. And because it has both names at that point in time, it's both Comet Storm and Shock, Chains of Eminence would prevent it from being played, from being defended with, or from being pitched. So there is a little bit of skill in that sort of aspect if you want to use these cards like Chains of Eminence, like Censor, or any future cards, and you want to prevent your opponent from playing them, choosing whether or not you go wide and you say, well, I know he's got a split card in hand, I'm going to choose Shock because that covers all the split cards and that means he can only play one half of them. Or if you go down the line and you say, I'm pretty sure he's got Comet Storm Shock. It's better for me to say Comet Storm in this scenario because then if he wants to play Shock, he has to pay 2 for it, and that's not very good for him.
No, it's not. No, bad value.
Yeah, exactly. So there's different angles for this interaction to go, but just so that you're aware that you can get around it by playing it as the name that hasn't been prohibited by the opponent. The alternative, of course, is that they play 2 Chains of Eminence and they name Shock on one and Comet Storm on the other. But that happens on camera in a game. I will give you a prize. I'll give you a reward.
All right, fair enough. Last question for everyone. You posted this in the Discord, so this is on you. But question for everyone. So I'm going to also hope that the people in our Discord will also answer this question. But what is the best phone background artwork in Flesh and Blood?
Yeah, so
do you have one in mind?
I do, because I recently had this thought the other day, because I was looking through our amazing artwork on Fab cards and whatnot. Absolute credit to the creative department and all the artists that we get to do this artwork. And there is a huge plethora of card art that I would just love to look at most of the day. And I was thinking about where do I see this card art? And it's either on my desktop background if I'm at the computer or of course on my phone screen that I carry around with me. And so I think you can see it. My current phone screen is of course the infamous Traverse the Universe you can see there. And some people were pulling up things like the new Rosetta Marvel as their phone art, or just recently I switched off of the Regicide card. I had both the blackout Regicide and the regular Regicide, and my phone switched between them depending on whether or not I was on the lock screen or the home screen. So I was curious what you guys thought would work as some of the best phone background artwork for Fab.
I mean, my initial one and immediate is Blood on Her Hands. That's kind of like my just general go-to as far as Fab artwork goes in the first place. But opening it up and seeing, Kasai looking at her reflection in the blood on her hands would just actually make my day. From there, God, it's hard. It might actually be Blaze. I don't I'm not a wizard player by any stretch of the imagination, but fuck did Swarty just go hard. He just crushed that art and it bothers me. But yeah, it probably would just be Blaze as my other one because it just looks so good. Derek's Arachne. That's number one.
He might just have Regicide as well, to be honest.
Probably be my Homer picks, Uzuri, whatever. I will say is assassin theme stuff. The new Japanese exclusive for new, I think looks pretty cool, and I just like that it's incredibly colorful as well. But usually when I think about stuff that would be on a phone, to me it's got to be something that looks good long ways, right? So even though it's a new one, honestly, I think it would be really cool to do the adult Ira, because I see the extended art for adult Ira, I could totally just see that just straight up that's the phone thing, right? So I think that would be my just kind of blanket generic pick right now.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like it.
All right, 247. So we went past that 230 by a minute. But let's thank some patrons. What do you say? That sounds like a good idea, right?
Yeah, sounds great.
We should do that.
All right, let's do it. For our associate producers, we have Andy, Sindra, Jacob, and the Salty Sea Cat. For our executive producers on up, we have Blaze Storm, valued member of the Patreon, Dom, Josh, would you like to do the honors?
Lance, good thrust.
God, that is a good thrust right there. Matt, Two Tokes, Poxunus, Vin Tox, annoying little brother, Fap never wanted. Facts. Papa Mike, Philip, Rich, and Sergeant Swanson. If you are interested in becoming a patron of Flesh and Pod, you can go to patreon.com/Flesh and Pod. Link is in the show notes, yada, yada, yada. Some number of tiers, fuck it, I don't care. And if you pay us money in any denomination, really, you can come into our Fab After Darks, which is where I'll tell you stories about the drunkest I've ever been. If you need to contact the show for any reason whatsoever, you can send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com. Links in the show notes. You can find us on @fleshpod on Twitter, which is a cesspool of scum and villainy. You can join the Discord. That's probably the best thing you can do. We're all there. Josh Scott's there. I'm there. Charmer's there. Ejor's there. I mean, it's anybody you want at this point. And it's free. You can just join. Don't have to be a member of the Patreon or anything. You just come and hang out. More than welcome to. And yeah, we have one rule. Don't be an asshole. Don't be a piece of shit. I'm an asshole, but don't be a piece of shit. Yeah, Charmer, where can they find you?
Just don't. No, I'm.
Oh boy.
If you want to talk Flesh and Blood, our Discord is a great place to do that. You can just ping me, or you could ping Jordan because it makes him happy.
It does make him happy.
He
really
loves
loves when you do that.
You can find me on Twitter. I'm usually posting about Flesh and Blood or some of the other card games that I play, or other just random nonsense. And then I have a Twitch and a YouTube, and I have other social media stuff as well, but I don't tend to post anything gaming related on those. So, if you want, you can check me out in other spots, but I don't know why you would. I don't like myself. I don't know why you would like me. So
wait, I like you.
That's fine. I just don't know why.
Oh, fair. Josh, where can they find you?
So you can usually find me on the Judge Discord. So that's a Judges of Rathe Discord. Otherwise, I am on Twitter, but I just have I'm less on Twitter now than I was a while ago. Maybe I'll get on Twitter some more. We'll see.
It's still the best Twitter follow in the world.
Oh yeah.
Aside from
treasure.
that, aside from just following me, the better thing to do is probably just to sign up on Judge Hub and start pursuing the life of a judge if you're interested in that aspect of things. We're starting to improve the judge program slowly but surely. We're getting merch out as well, so eventually you might see more of these things flowing around as well. This is the Judge B. It's a plush that we'll probably be distributing out sooner rather than later. So if you're interested in becoming a judge and getting some sweet judge swag, now's a better time than ever.
That's awesome. I don't think the judges know that they're getting swag yet, so this will be fantastic for them because the Beehive definitely deserves their own mascot. They do put in incredible work, and I would take the Flesh and Blood judge community over any judge community that I've seen in any other game. Like, they're wonderful, they're helpful, they're fun, and they're willing to go above and beyond just to make sure that they're doing things right. And it's refreshing, if nothing else. Yeah, I guess that's our show for this week. Oh yeah, shit, I forgot to tell people to fucking like and subscribe. God, fuck. You should do that. Do the thing on YouTube where you like and subscribe if you've made it this far through the episode, almost 3 hours in, because why would I mention the thing in the first 30 seconds that you're supposed to mention in the first 30? God, I'm terrible at this.
Just splice it in. It'll be fine.
Greg charges extra for that. Oh. But all right, well, that's our show for this week. We'll talk to you next week for 147 in a row. Why? All right.
Doing well.
Again, thank you very much, Josh, from the bottom of our hearts. It's always the best to have you on. An absolute pleasure. always welcome. And if nothing else, we'll see you for the next as yet to be named set where you come and tell us we're wrong again.
Sounds good. Let's go.
Thanks a lot for listening, everybody, and watching. And yeah, we'll talk to you next week. Bye.